Hello and welcome to episode 9 of In PS We Trust. My name's Davey and joined with me as always is Phil.
I go, woo!
And Spencer.
What's up?
We're a fortnightly PlayStation podcast and we each bring one topic of discussion to the table to go in depth on. But first, before we do that, boys, what are you drinking?
Well, Davey, tonight I'm starting off on a Lost Lager from Brewdog,
Okay.
but I've got something special for you lined up. As our main topic relates to wine or blood, I thought I'd join them in having a glass myself. So what I've queued up is a 2017 Rioja,
Right.
a bit of my own Maiden's Blood.
Is that what it's called? It's called Maiden's Blood.
No, it definitely isn't called Maiden's Blood, but let's pretend it is for the podcast.
Why don't we get into the wine business and call it Maiden's Blood and have like a blood... The label's easy enough. You just got a bloody handprint on the front of it.
Nice.
Goth writing, so it gets the metal people as well. And you could just literally just market it at people like goths, cyber goths.
So all the goths?
All the goths.
Is that the only two goths we got?
It's the only two goths I know of. And then apart from that...
And you're the expert.
You could stand outside Cradle of Filth concerts with Maiden's Blood wine and you'd make a killing. Surely.
I'd imagine, though, if it's popular, which it definitely is going to be, Resident Evil, Maiden's Blood is definitely going to be a thing. You know, someone like G Fuel or, you know, some supplier like that is going to pick up on that name, aren't they? And go for it.
It's also a really good name for a band, isn't it?
Maiden's Blood. Yeah, it actually really is.
Or we could just rebrand this podcast, to be fair. After today, normally, listeners, you know, we go into multiple topics. As I started this podcast, I was saying we probably will do. We're going to be going quite a long time, I imagine, on Resident Evil. So it may end up being that we don't do that much after that. And it may end up we just rebrand and become the Death Stranding Resident Evil Last of Us podcast. But, you know, we'll see what happens. So is that all you're on tonight? You're on the red wine, very cultured.
Well, as I said, starting off on the beers, and then I'll gravitate towards the wine as we get onto the Resident Evil topic.
Very nice.
So I'm theming my drink based on our topics. The beer to get us kicked off, the wine for a little later.
Very nice. Spencer, you going to shock the world by drinking anything other than Budweiser?
No.
Right. Right.
Perfect. On to games.
Well, I boys, I'm starting off strong. Starting off with Estrella, as per. And then I was on the Estrella website, and the story for this was, I was actually looking to see if I could find an Estrella t-shirt. So I thought it would just be on brand for me, right? So I thought...
What's wrong with the Slayer t-shirt?
Slayer's absolutely fine, but until they start making their own Maiden's Blood for me to purchase...
That would be perfect.
Exactly. It's not going to happen.
It's all about dual branding these days.
Exactly. It's all about getting in with the right crowds, isn't it? So if we could maybe get in with the Slayer crowd, move a little bit more hardcore from there, maybe go towards the goths. But I thought, right, well, what's on there? So I was on their website, and then they had this beer, which I haven't tried, called Inedit Damn. Apparently there's not a better way to say that. Apparently it's just Inedit, from what I've looked up online.
Feels like a terrible name.
Yeah, it doesn't sound amazing, does it?
Is it foreign?
It is, yeah. It's Spanish, just like Estrella is. So it's by the same company. And what apparently it is, it's a more complex beer compared to what I'd normally drink.
You say it's Spanish. Can we hear it in a Spanish accent?
Inedit. That's more Italian, right? That's more Italian.
Yeah. Ineditama. That's quite Italian. Basically, you're doing the voice that the Mario Brothers used to do on TV, which was hugely racist to all Italian plumbers.
Yeah.
Great show, though.
A great show. Do the Mario. We all remember that.
What we didn't know was they were actually doing a Spanish accent. And so that's why my Spanish accent was so on point then. But yeah, so apparently it's a more complex beer. Now, I'm not one of these poncy beer drinkers that understands the differences with lagers and things like that. I hardly know what difference between a Pilsner or an IPA is. And so this beer apparently has got textures of citrus fruits and all this stuff in it. I don't care. I'll let you know as we go on to the podcast how it actually tastes and if it's actually any good, because I'm starting off strong with the default Estrella, the main boy.
So this new lager that you're going to be trying a little later, what's the label like?
The label's just a label. It's really disappointing. For a premium, it's a premium bottle though. It looks like a wine bottle.
Okay.
And I mean, I have loads of things that get, when people see me, they reference loads of things being like a wine bottle. But the...
What? Like your head? Because your head's a weird shape.
What?
Like your little chicken legs, mate.
Yeah. I was hoping...
An upside down wine bottle.
I was hoping you guys would give me some props there. Maybe set me up for some kind of dick joke, but, never mind.
I think you set yourself up, mate.
I did. Set myself up for failure.
We're on episode 9 now.
I should know better.
Do you not know me and Spencer by now? Any opportunity to throw some shade, we're doing it. We're in.
I should know better. One thing I'll remind everybody, next episode 10, is our blowout episode. We'll be doing pre-drinks.
Blowout!
It's a blowout! Big summer blowout!
Blowout!
We're going to be doing pre-drinks, which are going to be streamed before we start recording the episode, and then the actual episode itself is going to be an absolute clusterfuck. So
that's going to be bad.
It's going to be fun, so make sure you write into the podcast with any questions you've got. I don't know how much newsy stuff we're going to go through, or if it's just going to be a load of bollocks, to be honest. But it's going to be fun regardless. So write into the podcast, pswetrust@gmail.com, and we're going to have a good laugh on that one.
# blowout.
If you remember last episode, boys, we had a letter in from a loyal fan, Cabrina, and she posed some rather serious questions and also gave us a big bit of insight into her life. Do you remember all about that? You remember that woman?
For sure. Do you mean Katerina or Cabrina, was it?
She wasn't sure on her own name, to be honest. It was it kind of flip-flopped between the two a little bit.
Okay.
I think for the sake of this, we should call her Cabrina.
Cabrina.
Even though her email's Catalina. But, people get confused with their name, don't they? That's the thing that happens.
Are we now classing her as the number one fan, or is Joe Thomas still number one?
I think Joe Thomas at this rate is still number one, but...
I don't know. Cabrina's 3 different people in one. That's 3 fans.
That is true. It's like a fusion, isn't it?
It is.
As long as she listens to the podcast 3 times, or on 3 different devices, then I'm all for her being number one fan. Let's see what she replied in the next email.
So if you remember rightly, last episode I asked the audience to write into our email, pswetrust@gmail.com, with a response to Cabrina's inquiry. And we got one.
Good.
And I've responded with this. So I'm going to let you guys know what was said. And this was from a good friend of the podcast, Thomas Williams.
Woo!
Let's go.
Our good friend Willard. And he wrote in and said, "Dearest Cabrina, I hope this message finds you well. It was so wonderful to hear from you. I feel we are somewhat kindred spirits. What a coincidence. I also work in a bank, so I know how long and hard those hours can be. Although I am much lower down the corporate ladder than you. My job involves setting up the wooden roller coaster toys in the foyer. I have to make sure all the wooden beads are at one side at the start of the day. I also have to clean and maintain them to make sure they have that smooth movement that makes them so satisfying. With COVID-19 restrictions, this has made my job even harder. I have to disinfect the wooden roller coaster toy up to 30 times a day. My boss is constantly shouting at me to clean harder and faster. Down on your knees. Clean, clean, clean. We both know how hard bosses expect us to work, I'm guessing. Hopefully, if I work hard enough, I can get promoted and be in charge of replacing the little pens on that wire string that people use to write checks. At the moment, that job is done by my nemesis, Steve. Oh, how I hate him and his expensive silk ties. I can only afford polyester, which causes my skin to flare up. And his fake leather shoes from Shoe Zone. Oh, he swans around with his pens like he owns the bloody place. Well, guess what, Steve? You don't. Anyway, I await your next correspondence.
My mouth hurts from smiling throughout all that.
Thank you, Willard, for writing in with that. Well, you got a response. So she responded, "My dear, I am very happy to see your letter. How are you? I have a strong feeling after my prayers today with fasting. I have a feeling that you are an honest person. Because of that honesty, I choose you to have this," and this is all in caps, "this confidential deal with. Dear, I want to inquire from you if you can handle a transaction for mutual benefits / life opportunity for you and me. You know, I am the Chief International Relation Foreign Remittance Unit, and the chief auditor to my bank here in the UK Birmingham branch. I have an opportunity to the sum of 15,500,000 United States dollars to transfer into your bank account over there in your country. I'll provide the full details of this business transaction when we've known each other, as business is with trust. I personally contacted you and you alone because of the love and trust I have bestowed on you. That is why it took some days to know a little about you. Now we must solidify our relationship with trust, and this trust, we must start it now. I would not like you to betray this trust I have in you since the day I first saw you first. My heart told me that you were the right person for me, and who would handle this proposal well for the two of us. The fund will be shared at the ratio of 58% for me, 40% for you, and 2% will be set aside to cover any expenses and tax in your bank. We will use the fund there in your country to build companies and for investment, which both of us would manage. Please, this is an honest request for you, and I keep this deal between us alone. Please, dear, make this transaction a top secret, because we do not have to trust anyone unless you and I alone.
Wait, what?
Please treat this business proposal with utmost confidentiality and send me the following information if you are interested. Full name and address, identification copy. Thanks and best regards, Cabrina. Now she says, note, she put a phone number on there too, by the way. So if you want this, guys, it's 07310 251 539. So by all means, go wild. Note, do not call me when I'm at work. You can SMS me or send me WhatsApp messages. Note, again, I do not entertain nasty comments, especially when it's for nude and immoral things.
Oh, damn. That was my first comment.
Damn. So no news, no news.
If you've got a WhatsApp, the first thing you're sending her, mate, you know what that is.
It's just just a picture of the wine bottle immediately.
Yeah. That wine bottle that you've been talking about, you could have just sent her that straight away. That would be your reply.
Wine bottle dong, straight on the WhatsApp.
Done deal.
Well, again, listeners, this is back over to you. First off, I just want to say, I might not do this podcast again because I might be a multi-millionaire after this podcast. But just in case I'm not, please write into the email, pswetrust@gmail.com, and let me know what we should reply with next. Let's see where this goes.
Over this week, Davey, what have you been playing, mate?
Right, well, the first thing I've been playing the last couple of weeks, you know I've been on the Resident Evil grind for my YouTube channel. So last episode I was talking all about Resident Evil Revelations 1, and I had a review up.
You've said Resident Evil, I'm going to start the wine.
Good lad, good lad. Since then, I've completed Resident Evil Revelations 2. The review isn't up yet, I haven't written it. It should be up by the time this episode goes live, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. In fact, it went into being one of my favourite Resident Evil games I've ever played.
Wow, that's awesome. That's big. That's high praise.
I adored it. If anyone's seen my review on YouTube for Resident Evil Revelations 1, I complained on there quite a bit about how the weapon mod system kind of broke the entire game, how it made it so easy, how the enemies just became fodder by the end of it. The exploration side of Resident Evil Revelations 1 was a pain in the arse because you had that scanner. So you were just constantly going around scanning the environment to look for stuff, and it was just boring. Well, it seems like as if everything that I complained about was fixed in Revelations 2, and everything had a purpose.
That's weird, because when did the game come out? They didn't listen to your review and retrofit this game for
No.
you. There wasn't a recent patch, was there? The SSJ Davey patch?
I don't think so. No, the game came out originally in 2015.
Capcom are like, oh shit, someone didn't like our game. Let's patch it quickly.
It must have just been a common complaint with a lot of people, because it's just superb. It just really is. And the biggest praise, and I popped off about 10 times for this, Barry Burton is back.
Hey,
Big bad Barry. And my God, playing as Barry for the first time in a Resident Evil game is phenomenal.
He's a fan favourite, mate. What do you expect?
Oh, he's so badass and so cool. I just loved literally everything. The combat's superb. Phil, have you played this game? Have you played Revelations 2?
I think it's one of the Resident Evils I don't actually own.
Wow.
So it's on my Amazon wish list. So if anyone wants my wish list, of course I can hand that out to them if they'd like to sponsor my playthrough of Resident Evil Revelations. But no, it is a game I am looking to pick up, and after this review, I'm in.
Honestly,
it sounds
The way it works, you basically have, just like in the original, you have two characters that you work through the story with. The game is split into episodic. It's an episodic release when it originally released back in 2015. And so you get like chapter 1, and then they're split into 2 acts. And so for Act 1, you're playing as Claire Redfield and Moira Burton, which is Barry's daughter. And then the second half of that, Act 2 of Act 1, is you're playing as Barry and a little girl. And the interesting thing is, just like on Resident Evil 0, you switch between both of the characters with the press a triangle. So you switch between Claire and Moira at a button press.
I'll probably really love that, because I love that kind of switching of characters in Resident Evil 0, as you said. No, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So it's like Overcooked.
No, not quite. But the way it works with combat is excellent, because you've got one character who can't perform any real combat. So they've got like a flashlight, or they've got like an ability to stun enemies. And you use them to stun the enemies, and then you use the other person, which is either Claire or Barry, to go and take them on. And you've got very limited ammo. You've got to really watch what you're shooting and what you're doing. The combat feels very similar to Resident Evil 6, but they've dialed it in such a way with the mod upgrades and stuff that you never feel overpowered. Every time you feel confident, you always end up coming out of a boss fight with literally nothing, and then you're starting the entire thing off again. And it's just, I cannot praise it enough. If you've overlooked this game, play it. It is superb. About 8-hour runtime, perfect for Resident Evil. Plot's great, fantastic. Apart from that, the only other thing I've been playing a lot of time into is Call of Duty. Nothing really changing too much, other than last episode, Spencer had done the campaign, if I remember rightly, but I hadn't.
Yeah.
I've done the campaign now. Really enjoyed it. Thought it was excellent, just like Spencer had said. I thought it was brilliant. I don't think it was as good as Modern Warfare was the year before. I don't think it was a touch on Modern Warfare's campaign, but it was fun. Over the top, fun, blockbuster gameplay. However, I've now hit a stumbling point, and I feel like my PS5 is going to go out the fucking window.
Yeah.
Is this to do with trophies?
It is to do with trophies. It is to do with trophies. There's a trophy on there which you have to complete Dead Ops and get to round 64. Get to that, and the highest so far I've got to is round 43, which I did with yourself, Spence. Spence,
yeah, mate.
How close are you away from committing genocide? Because I'm getting there.
Mate, I can't put it to words. Especially yesterday, we were literally playing this game mode, and we were having the best run of our lives. If people don't know, the run is mostly RNG dependent. It's just all luck based. And we were having an amazing run. We had 9 lives each, which is the max. We both had our fates, which is like power-ups you get. And then the game kicked me. It just kicked me from the lobby, which we were still in voice chat, so it wasn't either of our internets. It was just the game doing it. So I had to rejoin. I lost all my lives. I lost my weapon. Lost any power-ups I had. And then we lost.
It's soul destroying. Basically, for those that don't know, because the game mode isn't the most popular thing with COD, and it's certainly not the reason why people buy it. It's a top-down shooter, just like Dead Nation or any game like that. Really fun, really arcadey kind of game, really over the top. And by the way, to get to round 42 out of these 64 rounds, that's a 2.5 hour commitment to get to that point. So to die there then is soul destroying. And like Spence, like you said yesterday, I think we were both close to tears after you got DC'd. So we were on the run of our lives, and it just got taken away from us. Absolutely snubbed. Awful. Absolutely awful.
Also, it is the last trophy we need for the Platinum.
Gutted, boys. That must suck for it to be the last trophy that you need to get, and it being so hard. I don't feel sorry for you.
No, I know.
It's just one of those things where it just reminds me of Little Big Planet. How I was robbed out of that platinum because nobody liked my level. And I couldn't do anything about it.
Why didn't you make another account and go like it yourself?
I could have done that. That's cheating. I knew I wouldn't have earned it that way. I needed to do something better than jump the knife. And unfortunately, Phil's level jump the knife was just the superior product.
You can't get better than perfection, mate. Jump the Knife went down in history with Little Big Planet. You can still Google it now.
Jump the knife.
Of course, my old Facebook will probably come up. It won't come up on any reputable game sites, but it's still on the internet, so it's still out there for the world to enjoy. Jump the Knife, Little Big Planet.
Black market games, isn't it?
I might start reselling them.
You could do it in Dreams, mate. Do it in Dreams. You'll get even less
Oh my
people play it
God.
there.
Can you imagine?
So, Spence,
Yeah.
I imagine you've had a kind of similar experience with COD that I have, especially with this trophy kind of souring it. I know you've been playing that, so have you got anything you want to add on to that?
It's just, oh man. I'm enjoying multiplayer. I still enjoy COD. I still love COD. But I do want to smash my pad. I'm not going to, because it's DualSense. I do want to.
I was going to say, Spence, and you didn't get a second DualSense after the Amazon seller turned out to be a fake. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about our experience trying to buy a second DualSense?
Sure. Basically, I was just on Amazon looking stuff up for whatever reason, and I saw DualSenses were selling for £40.
Now that's crazy price.
That's crazy price. So I immediately hopped in the podcast chat. And I was just like, boys, oh my God. And I obviously sent the link. We looked at it. And it was sold by like Seng Zung Zim or something along those lines.
Probably knows Cabrina.
You might know Cabrina, yeah.
Yeah.
It might be the same person for all we know. But obviously, we looked into it for, oh, what the hell. Me and Phil both ordered it. And then not long after, we got an email saying the account was deleted.
Big yikes.
It really sucks because
Yeah.
not that I have any reason to have a second DualSense, but it would be nice to have one there, for backup, either if there is a multiplayer that I'm going to get into, local multiplayer, or, if I wear the original pad out, like all the pads that have come with any of the PlayStation consoles, I've always gone through a few, even with the amount that I play PlayStation. So I don't know about you boys. You must rinse through pads.
Weirdly, the PlayStation 4, the first pad I had for that died quite quickly. That died only a couple of months after I had it. But then my second pad lasted the entire life of the PlayStation 4. Absolutely fine.
That's good.
So I don't know. The DualSense feels like as if it's built to last. It feels like a really weighty bit of kit. My son's knocked it off the side a couple of times and it's been absolutely fine. So I've got no reason to buy a second one just yet. But the reason why I didn't jump in on it with you guys, I'm waiting for colours for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my thing.
What I was thinking with the DualSense, though, because it's so complex a handset, it's one thing that goes wrong, and then it just messes your handset up because you'll always want that one feature that's broken on the handset. So it would be a good idea to get a second one, especially at that sort of reduction in price. When Spencer mentioned it and we were looking at the seller, we kind of thought that something was going on. But as it's Amazon, you've got to be in it to win it. If it had turned up at my doorstep, I would have been happy to pay the 40 quid for it. But
100%.
As we got those emails, Amazon just refunded it straight away, so it's not a bother.
I tell you what, this kind of reminds me of a time, actually not take us too far off, but speaking of controllers, on PlayStation 3, right, you remember when that first launched, we didn't have any rumble in the pads at all. It was just the
6-axis.
That's it, the 6-axis. Couldn't think what it's called then. And so I remember I was in work at the time, and there was rumblings, excuse the pun, that there was going to be the DualShock 3 was coming out.
Are you going to put in the canned laughter afterwards there in the edit, yeah?
I might leave it out. I might just let the audience fill that in for themselves. It was just such a good pun.
Well, they'll probably laugh so hard that they wouldn't hear the canned laughter on that joke, so you're fine.
That's why I'm thinking. I'll just admit it, yeah. So, yeah, basically, I imported this white pad at the time from Japan, which was a DualSense 3, and they hadn't come out over here in the UK yet. And I thought, this has got to be fake, right? Because with the price of the yen at the time, I got it for an absolute steal. I think I got it for like 30 quid. I thought, oh, God, I'm going to get ripped off. And then a month later, it just arrived at my door. So I can totally see why you guys would jump in on it now and just go for it at a 40 quid. At the end of the day, like you said, you haven't lost anything, have you? Just a bit of time.
I know we're trying not to take this topic too far off, but, like we've been there before with the PlayStation Pros. Me and you, Davey, when we saw those at that reduced price, we jumped in.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And again, it was, one of these sellers just trying to make a couple of bucks on Amazon, but it happens. But if it had turned up at my door, I would have been, super happy with a 40 quid DualSense.
Yeah, exactly. I can totally see that. So, Spence, other than COD, anything else that you've been playing at all?
Well, I played Devil May Cry 5.
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
Great game. I played it. I beat it in a day.
Wow. So was it quite short then?
No. Kind of. It's kind of the exact length you want it to be. It was like 10 to 12 hours.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I stayed up all night, so like 6 a.m. I was gonna pick up my my Pulse headset that day as well. So I was like, this will help keep me awake. So I just started Devil May Cry, got my headset, carried on with Devil May Cry, and I finished Devil May Cry that night.
So is this the DMC5 for PS5, the one that's had the enhancements?
It is, yeah. Yeah, the special edition.
So how did you play it then? Because there's a couple of ways you can play that, isn't there? There's like modes like with Miles Morales where you can go for performance or you can go for resolution and you can go for different things like that with like frame rate up to 120. I think that game's one of them that does that.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you end up playing that game?
I played it with ray tracing 60.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it did have 120 mode, but obviously my TV can't handle it. Otherwise, I probably would have gone with it. But even though I was on ray tracing 60, I did notice some dips in frame rate.
Really?
And I actually did have quite a lot of issues with this game.
Did you? I literally, I don't know. I haven't played a Devil May Cry since Devil May Cry 2. That's how long it's been since I played Devil May Cry. Yeah, it's been a long time. DMC2 kind of put me off. In terms of the things that you experienced, what kind of bugs were you running into?
And just to jump in before you answer that, just to tag something else on, what was the price point of that game? Because this is a PS4 game that's been upscaled for PS5 and resold, isn't it?
Yeah. The game itself is usually £35. I got it for £27, I think.
To be fair, that's a fine amount for a PS5
That's
game.
great.
Yeah.
The game only came out last
great.
year, didn't it? 2019?
Considering we've all been sort of fretting about paying 70 quid for a game on PS5, you know, to pay half that. I know it's an older game, but to pay half that, that's brilliant.
Yeah, for a game I hadn't even experienced as well, and I am quite a big DMC fan, so I was quite keen to play it.
Well, to my knowledge, it came at the end of the generation as well with PS4, didn't it?
March 2019 it came out, so it's not even 2 years old yet. And to get it for that price, that's decent.
Perfect.
That's really good.
Yeah, but like gameplay wise, I think I loved it. There really wasn't anything I could say about story, gameplay, all that. It was brilliant. The audio was good as well. Everything about the game itself was brilliant. However, there's a bug with the game, which apparently happened on the PlayStation 4 as well, and it's a persistent bug that carried over. If you launch the game whilst it's installing, and before it's finished installing, it will not let you progress past Mission 2. Ever. You have to uninstall the game, and then reinstall it, and let it complete before booting it up.
That is mad. Do you remember the conversation we had a little while ago on the podcast? One of the early episodes we did, we were talking about how good would it be if you could install like the games basically instead of using all your hard drive up, could just use a couple of chapters ahead of where you are, so that you can just save hard drive space. I suppose this is one of the dangers that you can run into is you can encounter bugs like this.
Well, that's what we settled on, wasn't it? It was the idea that you could install the chapters you're playing, and as you play the chapter, the next chapter or the next two chapters would install on your system. So when you're progressing through the story for the first time, and you're not backtracking in any way, the content you want is there and installed and ready for you to play.
Yeah, it does make sense. Other than that, and the frame rate, there was one other issue, but it didn't make sense to me, which is weird, because usually if something crashes, I at least understand why or something.
Sure.
But you know how on PlayStation 5 a game will crash and it will just kind of freeze for a second, say this game or app stopped working, except don't send report or whatever, and then you go back to the home screen.
I actually haven't had that yet.
Oh mate, you haven't been playing Call of Duty.
But I haven't been playing many games on PS5, but maybe I have been playing one this week. We'll get on to my topics next, but carry on. Ooh.
Okay, mate. Okay,
well,
little
just
foreshadowing.
Just like Spence said, Call of Duty is the worst for it so far. It is literally, it's daily. It's daily. Every single time I play it, there's at least one crash.
Is that multiplayer or?
But every mode.
The story.
Everything.
Really? The story. So they must have rushed that out.
Spence was watching me play the single player, and I had rubber band in.
It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen in my life. There's no reason for it to rubber band in a campaign.
It was so strange. It was so strange. And literally, it's on every single game mode now. There's been some errors. Granted, you got to think we've played, 70, 80 odd hours maybe now of COD? overall across all the modes.
I played 100, but yeah.
Jeez, sweaty. And we are getting a crash a day, but it's not really hampering my experience too much, apart from my blood pressure rising through the roof with Dead Ops last night. What else have you been encountering then, Spence? So what was this error that you encountered that makes no sense?
Right. So the error that makes no sense is basically the game would crash, and it was weird. It would crash. Usually when a game crashes, it says the game has stopped working. And a crash says send report, you send report, whatever. It would crash, or like the game would carry on playing, but it would stop letting you control it for a second. And then it would crash, you'd send the report.
Was the person controlling it after you any better than you or worse than you? Because if you
just-
lost control and then, it took over and you had maybe like a pro player like me taking over from you, you probably feel a lot better about it.
I never should have let you speak then. I should have just carried on.
Well, that'd be a good way to get the platinum, wouldn't it? You could just literally just hand control over to Phil halfway through on a crash, let him S-star every single level.
Oh no, it's crashed.
Oh no, it's crashed again. And you just Googling, how do I cause a crash? Please make it crash.
Please.
To be fair, if I'm the guy that takes over when the game crashes, I would get a lot of calls from your house, Davey, because you get to a point in games and you're trying to look for all the cheats to get around them. It'd be on speed dial to my house.
I thought you were going to go the fact that I'd be ringing you up angry as hell about the way you're playing. Like the way you
God
play
of
every
War.
single game when I watch you play.
Anyway, yeah, back to the crash, hold on. Basically, your character stops moving. I'll say that. The controls don't work, your character just stops moving completely. Then it crashes, says, it doesn't say this game, it says this software has stopped working. You send the report, and then the support goes away, and it just goes back into the game. And the game never crashed.
That's so weird.
Saying it now, I think I understand what might have been going on. And I think it's to do with them adding the support for adaptive triggers and haptics. And I think it's the software using the controller that's crashing. Because thinking about it, that might be why it stops me controlling it.
That kind of makes sense. And I suppose the weird thing about it is this is the first generation that I've ever had to update a handset.
Yeah,
So it could very well be that. That does kind of make sense.
that's annoying now. I wish I didn't figure that out.
Well, there you go. Well, if anyone else is having the issue, then write into the email, pswetrust@gmail.com. Or if you're having any crazy bugs that you want to warn the rest of the audience about, write in. But Phil, you said you've been playing a couple of games on PS5 lately, or you've been playing a game on PS5, very secretive about it. Tell me, what have you been playing?
Yeah, I've been playing a game a couple of times throughout the week because my missus has been using the computer upstairs, so I haven't been able to play League as much. So I've found myself stuck downstairs with a PS5 and one game. I took myself back and been doing a couple of the trophies on Miles Morales. And actually, it's been really interesting, been really entertaining, been enjoying them quite a lot.
Have you got the platinum yet?
I haven't got the platinum yet, but I've got everything that you could possibly do on the first run. Because, as you would know if you've played Miles Morales, you need to complete the game twice to get the full platinum. But I've been trying to get every trophy out of the way before I do that second run. So the ones that were left for me was all the crimes, the wall and ceiling takedowns, which I farmed at the Roxxon plants, and then the 100-hit combo, which actually wasn't that difficult. Again, I did that at the Roxxon plant.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I remember grinding for the ceiling and wall takedowns, but I just did them while I was doing the main story on the second run through. I was just literally putting
I
myself
didn't have to grind for those at all.
Did you not? I hardly ever used them. I
literally used them the whole time. It's a one-hit kill. I was like, there's the one... Oh, it's a spoiler, so I'm not going to say it. There's one segment where it basically puts you in the room in stealth, and I literally cleared the room. It was a massive room full of enemies. I cleared the room without getting seen and just used ceiling and wall takedowns.
The thing about it is when you go into the Roxxon bases, a lot of the time you're on rafters. So your takedowns are on the rafters, and they don't count as ceiling takedowns or wall takedowns. So I think I completed the whole game just by being on the rafters.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any of the 25 trophies for being actually on the ceiling or being on the wall.
That's weird.
That's why they were left to the end. I must have done some because I didn't have to do 25 when I walked through it. The ones that I actually had to play and replay slightly was the crimes, because I think I may have only got one or two bonus objectives when I played it. So it was going back through and making sure that I got 3 objectives on each one of those to get the trophy. Left now on Miles Morales is the Rhino trophy, which is ridiculous because when
Yeah.
you play the game, I think, as we said in the Miles Morales spoiler cast, Spence, when you're on Rhino's back, the game is telling you to avoid the pillars,
Yeah,
but then
yeah,
it
is.
rewards you in a trophy for taking down the pillars,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. So that's one of the trophies. Of course, collecting all the suits and all the skills, which you can't do unless you play the full game or the second completion, and then of course the trophy for completing it again the second
Yeah.
time. So they're left for me to do.
To be fair, you get the suit one immediately once you start New Game Plus.
Sure.
And the Rhino one's the first mission.
But I've still got to play it through again to actually.
Yeah, you have to beat
actually
it, but
platinum
it's
it.
just literally that one trophy then, and that's quite nice because then you play through the whole game, you finish it, and then you just see that little ting. You're like, yes.
I am driven to get the platinum on this Spider-Man game because I got it on the PS4 Spider-Man as well. So that completes the set for me. But I don't think I'm driven enough now to jump straight back into playing through the story. I want to leave it a bit so then when I play through the story, it's kind of not so familiar, right? I don't remember every step. At the moment, it's too recent for me. I've got a couple of other things that I would like to stream, so I think I'll be focusing on those for a little bit before I go back and complete Miles. But it will happen. It will happen.
I'm going to ask the question that I think our audience are chomping at the bit here.
Hit me.
Now that League season's back, are you in silver yet?
I'm grinding my way up, mate. We're doing really well. Me and my duo partner, my mate Scott from work, who I think finished in gold. He's much better than me at the game. But yeah, we're trying to grind through now, and he started with a new account, which he leveled to 30 before the season started. But I'll keep you up to date when I eventually get to silver. It'll be a big day. I'll have a drink for it.
So what else have you been playing then, mate? If the grind continues with League, anything else that's been tickling your fancy, or has it just been the usual mobile games?
Yeah, you know me. I'm always playing a little bit of Raid Shadow Legends, but there's also a game that I believe you've played and we haven't mentioned yet.
Oh, okay. Please do
I say
tell.
game, but I mean more of a demo.
Oh, you mean Maiden, right?
I mean Resident Evil Maiden.
Well, we'll be talking about Maiden very shortly in our next topic.
Just before the next topic starts, I want to issue an apology. There was many times in the last podcast that myself was intoxicated and wrongly pronounced GeoJack HD's username. It is not Jack Geo HD. It is GeoJack HD. I am sorry, Jack.
Love you, Jack.
Get your nan on, Jack.
Please don't put that in there.
So, boys, my topic, or the topic we're about to discuss, is the Resident Evil showcase that just happened. What did you boys think of the showcase? Obviously, we all watched it together. Did you enjoy it? Was it worth happening? What was your take from it? Phil, what were your opinions?
Well, for me, it was an absolute pleasure to share that time with you guys. It was nice to jump on my Twitch channel and sort of watch it live and have that interaction with some of our followers. It was nice to see Joe Thomas pop up in the chat. Very much enjoyed the showcase. Obviously, they went through a trailer for Village, which looks hype as fuck. We saw the Resident Evil multiplayer, which I know Davey's been playing a little bit of it, and he tried to get me to watch his stream today. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
We saw a little taster of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, which is their Netflix series that's coming up very soon, which I'm excited about, because I very much love their CG movies that they brought out. Really enjoyed those. And then there was this weird kind of link in with Division 2, which I didn't understand.
Yeah, I have no idea why they did that. I don't even know who's playing Division anymore.
I don't know who loves Resident Evil but plays Division. It's such a weird mix of two developers, and
Yeah, it's strange.
so if any of our listeners are playing the Division 2 still, and are excited about this, we'd love to hear from you. But I'm not sure that's a big one really. The Division 2. Much more interested in, of course, what's happening with the Village, and of course the demo that we've all been playing.
Hell yeah.
Just before we get into that, I gotta say, I'm the complete opposite opinion to you about the showcase. I loved sharing it with you guys. Don't get me wrong. I actually loved sharing it with you. The problem I have is that when a company comes out and says we're doing a showcase, you'd naturally expect it to be at least half hour to an hour. That's normally what you'd anticipate for a showcase.
What are you basing this on?
The fact you've got Nintendo Directs, even when Apex does an event at E3, That's half hour, 40 minutes just on Apex.
Yeah, but like state of plays and such are usually only like 20 minutes.
But are they announced before? Like the state of play we just had for Destruction All Stars just uploaded straight onto YouTube. Are they hyped up? No. The fact this was hyped up, I think they could have covered this off in a blog post with a trailer. And I think that would have been fine.
But Davey, what about these Nintendo Directs? Do you care about everything that's going on, or are you just watching them for the newest Smash character?
Watching them for the newest Watching them for the newest Smash character, yes. But with
easy for you to say. But that's 5 minutes of maybe an hour.
That's true. But when you got it focused around Resident Evil, the problem is when you announce it as a showcase, people start getting crazy expectations, including me. So I know the Capcom leaks. Resident Evil 4 is being remade. We know that's common knowledge.
I think the only thing that we maybe predicted that was in this showcase, or at least I did, was some information on what's happening with the movie franchise, because I know that's just wrapped in Canada. So that'd been quite interesting if they'd give us a snippet of that. But out of that, and they've swapped it in for Division 2. That's the only difference for me.
I enjoyed the showcase for what it was, although I just don't feel it needed to be a showcase. I didn't think it needed a presenter. I didn't think it needed anything that it did. I thought that you could have literally just had, look, we got a new trailer going up, a new deep dive into the game with some extra Resident Evil news going live at this point. And just done that. Instead of being, it's a showcase. And then you think, okay, it's Resident Evil showcase. They're going to show loads of stuff. And you don't get any Resident Evil 4. You don't get any information on anything else other than Resident Evil 8, the movie, some bullshit stuff with just fucking Division. I was just like, I don't know.
I'm actually on the side with Phil, because as much as, they obviously could have shown off more, they did show off quite a fair bit with the multiplayer mode, Village, the demo, all that. It'd be weird for them to just upload all of that to YouTube right away with a blog post or whatever, when they could have done a showcase. It didn't really subtract from anything, did it?
I feel like they showed loads when it came to the Village. I'm looking at my notes now that I've got for our next topic, and it's probably the most I've ever written for one of our podcasts. There was so much to dive into there that they showed us.
There definitely was. I don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not saying for a moment that the content they showed wasn't up to snuff. I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is when you set an expectation for a showcase, you don't expect it to be a sizzle reel. You expect it to be a showcase, not 15 minutes. That's an in and out. That's a one night stand.
I know what you're saying here, Davey, but did you see the numbers that were watching that live? Did you not see the amount of tweets, the amount of social media that came not from Capcom, but from all the potential buyers of this game?
I did.
It was crazy.
I also saw the amount of pushback that came from people being like, this is bullshit, no Resident Evil 4 shown, la la la. It's because they let expectation go a bit too crazy with it. That's my opinion on it. That's what I feel.
Well, yes, there are still some fans of Resident Evil 4. And there's lots of people that arc back to the nostalgia of that being the best Resident Evil game.
Even though
so as soon as they get a snippet of that game being re-released and getting the Resident Evil 2 treatment that we all love, they're going to be hype about it. And if they don't get it, they're going to be angry.
Yeah, exactly. I prefer the fact Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's on its way. It is. I would rather they didn't show it off in that showcase, and I'm glad they didn't, because ultimately it would subtract from the hype for Village.
Fair. I respect you guys' opinion. I do. I do. And I did enjoy it, and I enjoyed spending it with you guys. And just like you said, Phil, every single moment of that entire showcase was handpicked to show a particular element off. And there's so much to unpack on that. So I'm really looking forward to going into that with you guys now. Guys, I'll tell you what I loved about it. And the thing I realised is that I am in love with the tall vampire lady. I'm not sure exactly how to say her name. I know it's Lady Diminiscu or something.
I was going to say she has a name, but I didn't want to be the first one to pronounce her name.
I mean,
I think it's Lady Dimitrescu.
But she has a first name as well.
Oh, I don't know her first name.
I can spell it out for you, but I don't want to.
Give it a go. Give it a go, Phil.
I'll say it. I'll say it. Go on. I'll make an idiot of myself. I'll say it.
Alcina.
Alcina.
I'd say Alcina Dimitrescu.
Are we going with Dimitrescu?
Dimitrescu.
Alcina Dimitrescu.
Yeah.
She's the
Alcina
tall.
Dimitrescu.
She's the tall lady.
Yeah. Remember that, Davey? That's what you'll be moaning.
Trina Dimitrescu.
You already said it wrong.
It's like the Xbox Series X. It's just something I can't get my head around. I am in love with her. I am absolutely in love with her. I don't know what's happened. I haven't felt this way since I saw Tifa, but I've got a crush. I cannot wait for her to fuck me up.
They are such different characters.
Both
That's
got big
insane.
boobs.
Both
I think it's just the angles, though, with this Dimitrescu lady. You're either looking up at her or down at her.
Either way's a good time, isn't it? Either way's a good time. You got a face full of those boobs on your head. Even when she got a giant claw. Just fuck me up.
This game's meant to be scary. It's not meant to be a game that you're playing one-handed.
I'll be running into her. Get me. Oh, you can't get me.
Davey plays it with the rumble function on like 11.
I do, yeah. I do. I want to feel every moment. I want to
force feedback on every claw, like.
But yeah, I've got a mega crush on her. I tell you what, she is gorgeous. That entire game looks sensational. Every single bit of it on that original trailer that they showed looks fantastic. Let alone the intrigue they set up with showing Mia again. I mean, I'd never trust Mia from 7. The way that she sliced my hand off and stabbed my hand and did all the shit she did in 7, I'm not trusting her. Even if she's my wife and she's fine. No.
I totally agree with you, mate. You know, the stuff we were seeing for Resident Evil Village is absolutely stunning. We get to visit 2 distinct locations that Ethan will be visiting, you know, from the Gothic village to the more ornate castle. The lighting, the attention to detail is crazy.
It truly is. It is beautiful. I'll tell you what, mind. Big lady Dimitrescu, or you, whatever, she's not quite my type. I much prefer a daughter.
I was going to say that too. You know, I'm much more into the daughters.
Not the scabby maggot daughter.
It's locusts, mate.
Oh, she had like maggots. Like, oh, she's manking. She looks like the kind of girl that you'd need.
You up.
She should mess you up. You'd have to put her in a bath before you did anything, though.
No.
She'd be stinking.
Yeah, that's blessed.
Oh, no, you can't have that.
The thing about it, guys, we've only really seen one of the daughters. There's another 2 that they're keeping hidden. And
yes,
from my past experience, the first daughter you run into is never the best. It's always the sister you're looking at, thinking.
You want the middle one. So they're a little bit more self-conscious anyway, aren't they, being the middle? They're not the most loved. They're the one that's going to really mess you up, the middle.
I don't know if this section is going how I thought it was going to go, right? I've got all these notes about every little detail that's going on in Resident Evil Village, and you're just obsessing over the fucking woman with the big tits.
Yes.
I'm a simp for her, honest to God. I never thought this would happen to me, being a 31, nearly 32-year-old man, and she's made me feel like a little school kid. I'm going to stop my simp hat, all right? Simp hat's off. We're going to talk seriously about this now.
I don't know if I'll take mine off, but yeah, go on.
I'm trying. This is a lot of willpower here to take this off. All right?
I can see it.
It's off. Let's dive into this. First off, let's go through the showcase bit by bit, and then we'll cover off Maiden.
Sure.
How does that sound to everyone?
Great.
Sounds good to me.
Right, so first thing that they showed off was obviously the Village trailer. They showed off a lot of little tidbits. Obviously, they showed off like item box, showed off the new merchant, the Duke, big bloke himself, looking a bit like Chris.
I gotta say, the item box looks fantastic.
It does look nice.
Absolutely fantastic. Phil, you play Resident Evil 4, same as myself.
For sure.
I gotta say, Resident Evil 4's got the most satisfying item box out of all of Resident Evil because of how customizable it is and how you can flip and rotate items to make sure they fit in your item box.
It's the Resident Evil minigame of Tetris, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And to see that return, I was so excited by that. So excited.
The thing that I'm slightly worried about, and I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast, is when they went into the upgrades tree
Yeah.
and all the things you can buy from the merchant. I always find this idea in games that, there's someone selling you all these weapons. Unless it's baked into the story somehow, I suppose a lot like God of War and the dwarves, it just seems so foreign to have him sat there with all these items for Ethan, but I don't know how he's threaded into the story just yet. We didn't learn a lot about the Duke, did we?
No, we just saw how he works. We don't know about the character himself as of now.
And of course, with these upgrades, something that Davey mentions quite a lot on his YouTube videos is the feeling of being overpowered. I would hate that Duke allows this to happen in this new version of Resident Evil.
Do you feel like that happened in Resident Evil 4?
To be honest, Resident Evil 4 was so long ago. I'm more talking about watching your YouTube videos and the experience you had with Revelations more than my experience with Resident Evil 4, if I'm honest.
My reason why I'm not worried about this is because it looks like to me like they've just taken a fusion with Resident Evil 8 of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 4, and they've just combined the two. And that's what it looks like to me. And Resident Evil 4, for as arcadey and as over the top as it was, and it never felt like you were overpowered in that game. I think it's going to play exactly like Resident Evil 7 does, which is fantastic for me. I'm more than happy with that. But with some of the added bonuses that Resident Evil 4 has in terms of replayability. So Resident Evil 4, even though it's not my favorite Resident Evil, it's one of the most replayable ones out of the entire lot because of the upgrade system in terms of how fun the game is to play and how much progress you feel like you're making throughout the game, even though really your upgrades turn into the fact that you're fighting harder enemies. Yeah. So it all evens out in the end.
That's what it should be, shouldn't it? Like as you higher up the difficulty and you get more confident with the combat and the game and you understand the layout of the maps, then these upgrades that you earn over that time should influence the later playthroughs, as opposed to on your first playthrough, I just buy a Magnum and just blow the shit out of everybody.
Exactly, and that's why when you're saying about my Resident Evil Revelations, with Resident Evil Revelations, it was a case that the upgrades, the weapon upgrades, broke the game because it made the game fundamentally really easy. It turned a weapon that you get loads of ammo for because it's not very good into a one-shot killer. Yeah. I cannot see that happening in this game. I really cannot see that.
I'm also bringing it up just to, hype you up a little bit, Davey. You do a really good job over on your YouTube channel. What is the address for the listeners again?
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, it's just go onto YouTube, type in SSJ Davey. It's the top result. Loads of videos on there. At this point now, I've done 4 Resident Evil videos, and by the time this podcast goes out, should have Revelations 2. And shortly after that, and then deep diving through Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 before this game comes out. I might do 5 and 6 as well. I just really do not fancy running through 6 again if I can help it.
Those boys over on the Crimson Head podcast are going to hate us, aren't they? I feel like we're stealing their thunder slightly.
We are a little bit, yeah. We are a little bit.
But shout out to the guys. I'm definitely going to deep dive into their podcast over the next week, I think. Probably listen to a couple of their episodes. Really interested in it. One of the guys followed me earlier on Twitter, so shout out to them guys if they listen to our cast.
One thing I find a little bit concerning with Resident Evil 8, and granted, this could be linked to the Resident Evil 4 mantra, if it is marrying it up too quickly. There's that one scene that was shown in the trailer where there was the big werewolf guy where he had a giant axe thing, right? Like giant hammer axe. And around him he had a load of minions. There's about 10 minions there. Looks like we got a lot of enemies in this. I wonder how they're going to balance this.
Sure.
And this is my only concern with Resident Evil, because you get into the point where you get too much ammo and it becomes an action game. And I don't want that, especially for first person, because Resident Evil 7 was so effective because it had very limited number of enemies. There wasn't actually many throughout the entire game, if I remember correctly, but each one posed a challenge because you had very limited ammo to deal with them. Mm-hmm. So if you've got like a smorgasbord full of enemies, it means you're going to have ammo to match that, unless they make you choose And that will be the big thing.
So my take on watching the demo and kind of things I noticed from it was that in sections like Ethan, not so much the demo, the showcase, you saw Ethan aiming at certain parts of the enemies.
Yeah.
So for example, I might only have 10 bullets, and there might be, as Davey said, a huge amount of enemies, but I'm there, maybe I'll shoot through the legs to take them out, as opposed to try and get that headshot, which might be a bit more risky. I might have to choose my shots more wisely in this game, as opposed to just always going for the kill, right? I might just have 10 bullets and I might just want to down these zombies and run past them.
That would be superb. If it's done that way, and it's a case of, you've got to think, right, okay, maybe I could dip round to the right on this, so I'll take out the 2 on the furthest on the right, and I'll skip round the other 8. Fine. Absolutely perfect.
That's what I'm seeing from it. I think that you're going to find that all the enemies you come in contact with will have clear weaknesses, and it won't just be a glowing heart on their chest, right?
Glowing eye.
Or glowing eye, or whatever it is, arcing back to all the other Resident Evils. It might be a dodgy leg that they're limping on that you can shoot out, and that downs the zombie but doesn't actually kill them. I'd love them to go down that track. And from what I'm reading, from what I'm seeing with it, there is definitely that choice in where you shoot on the enemy, depending on how they react.
In my opinion of it, I think that whole werewolf segment, I think that might be the only time you engage with werewolves or those type of species of enemies. Because I think that big guy with the hammer might be similar to like the old bloke in 7 where you hit him with your car and set him on fire and all that. It might just be a boss fight where he has a few minions. That might be the only time you really encounter him.
That'd be fine if it is that.
Yeah. You're referring there, Spencer, to Jack Baker.
Yeah.
From Resident Evil 7. So he was the antagonist that you meet early on in Resident Evil 7. And he's actually, invincible for a large portion of that game. So it might be that it's one of those bad guys that you see in Resident Evil that turns up a lot, but ultimately it's part of the story, part of the cutscene, that you either have to down or just escape.
Mm-hmm.
What I hope is that the Duke, at some point, has a little cloak on when you first meet him or something, right? This would be like a Hideo Kojima move. So sticking on trend for the podcast. Where like he'd have like a mask over his face. And he'd be just looking like the merchant from Resident Evil 4. And then he'd be like, "What are you buying?" And then you'd be like, "What?" And then he just flips off and it's the Duke. He's like, "I'm the Duke, bitch." And he's just like, "Oh my god, it's a new character, but it'd be like a little Easter egg." I hope there's something like that in there. I really hope to God there is.
I couldn't see him going that obvious with it.
No.
What I could see them doing is in a later conversation that you have with him, if he turns up in different areas, such as the dwarfs within, God of War, that one of his openings is, "What are you buying?"
Stranger.
If he says that in any of the dialogue, then everyone's just going to go mental about it. And
Yeah, they will.
After what you said earlier about all the outrage that people had for not getting their dose of Resident Evil 4, for that then to come up in Resident Evil Village, oh my god, mind blown.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be hella awesome.
I love Easter eggs in Resident Evil, and most of the time it comes from costumes. Like you get costumes like in Resident Evil 0 when you're playing as Rebecca, there's a costume you can have where she's in her like basketball outfit, which is a picture you can find as an Easter egg in Resident Evil 1. So something like that bound to happen. If it's not that, I want it to be the merchant, and he describes how he got out of that island in Resident Evil 4 and how he's put on a shed load of weight because he's eating a lot of kids.
I think Capcom obviously know how popular he is through all the memes and through all the the mentions on social media. So it would be a no-brainer for them to include some kind of Easter egg or some kind of like tagline or something back to him, or even you run into the merchant in a certain part of the castle.
That'd be nice.
The Duke is the majority of it, and then there's kind of like we're talking trophies. The other merchant, you find him in some remote part of the castle, maybe up in one of the towers, that's where he hangs out.
Oh, can you imagine if he's just been killed? He's just on a spike and he's just like a normal person wouldn't even notice him. You just walk past. But if you look up at the character model, it's just the merchant from RE4. And you're just like, oh my God, like he was here. Oh, anything back to him would just be so hype. But what are your guys' thoughts on the Duke? Because he's a big lad. He's a unit.
Well, as I said earlier, I think the function in the game, I just hope he doesn't overpower you too early.
No, I don't think he will. I think he'll probably unlock stuff to sell you throughout your playthrough.
I think he's going to be a good excuse for comedy in the game.
Yeah.
Because I think the game's going to be quite serious. I think it's going to be hella scary from what I've seen in the demo and from what I saw, in all the trailers. I'm already shitting my pants. I think he's going to be the release. He's going to be the Timon and Pumbaa of this game. He's going to be the bit where you think, I'm safe.
I don't think he's going to be comedic. I think he's just going to be the one character you speak to through the game. I think it's going to be quite a lonely game, just like 7 was, where you're not talking to anyone other than the enemies, and that's it, and you're on your own. And even though Chris has been shown, and even though Chris has been featured in all the trailers and everything else, I can't see him being in the actual game too much.
Totally agree with you. I don't think Chris is going to feature very much. You'll probably be at the start and the end. Done.
Flashbacks, key moments, things like that.
You're going to be with Ethan the majority of the time trying to get his, which we assume is the story, his daughter back from the mistresses of the castle.
Exactly. And so I think the merchant's just going to be your mate. Just going to be just someone that you see. I don't think they're going to go down a comedic route with it, even though the character design does make it seem like he's a little bit more jovial, being such a fat guy. Although he does look quite threatening.
He does.
He looks like he'd eat you.
It could be a case of after you buy everything you need from him, he could be a fight.
I would love that. Have they ever done that?
No.
With a sense of it's a character you trust through the whole game, and it's a double kind of like take on it. He comes back and he's the bad guy. All the stuff he's been doing is for his cause, and then he's like, "I've tricked you all the way, Ethan. I've given you all these guns to take down these women because I couldn't do it myself because probably physically I can't take them.
Because I can't walk.
Yeah, I can't get out of this carriage, and I'm addicted to Sunny D and chocolate."
They haven't done anything like that ever. The thing about it is, for Resident Evil 7, you're on your own. You're on your own through that. And the moments of solace in Resident Evil is all told through music. It's always the save themes. And so you get really accustomed to these save themes, and that's why they're so memorable. It's because it's your moment to think, Jesus Christ. I mean, even in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, you're being pursued, you're being chased, all this. As soon as you go into a save room, and you hear like, dun, 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 dun. Ding, 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 ding. And you think, thank God. You can just plan for a minute. Look at the map, plan what you're going to do, where you're going to go. The merchant, I think, is going to be that guy. That you get to him, and you're like, oh, thank God. Now, the thing that will throw it all out of whack is what happened to me in Last of Us 2, which is when you go to an upgrade station and you get booted off it and decked off it, and you think, Jesus Christ, this destroys everything I knew was true, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully the merchant, I think, is going to be used as that tool, as your safe space, and that's why he's going to be so memorable. I think it's brilliant they've characterized it instead of being in a menu.
I know we're getting to the end of this point because we've talked for it for quite a while, but I would love Capcom to say, what always happens at save points? People think they're safe. I would love them to think, do you know what's going to happen at different save points throughout it? You're not safe. They're just going to flip it on its head, and they're going to say, once you go to this guy, you're going to get attacked. But you're not going to be expecting it because you're so used to being safe in a safe point. So you're not going to have safe points with this game. So once you get to that merchant, you've got to time it, right? As opposed to like...
Or clear the area.
Or clear the area. Yes, yeah. Or get later on in the game where it is safe. But like, I'm playing Resident Evil 2. I'm getting through. I'm getting chased. I run to the save point. I'm fine. I know he's not going to come in there. But let's say characters interact with you when you get to the merchant. When you get to the Duke, sorry.
That was the thing we were all expecting for Resident Evil 2, wasn't it? We were all thinking, what if he can go into the safe space? And that's one of the first things I think all of us tried at some point was, I'm going to try and bait him. And he wouldn't come in, and you thought, thank God.
We all sit in the save point, walk outside, take a couple of shots, walk back in the save point, walk back out, take a couple more shots, and try and down Nemesis. Because that's happened so many times, right? In
On
Resident Evil
RE3,
3.
you mean
yeah, in
Resident Evil 3?
RE3. But the same with Tyrant. That maybe not Tyrant. Mr. X. That's definitely happened, right? When he's chasing you around the mansion.
Yeah, you just running for the save point at that point.
Exactly.
And I hope, I know this is a bit lame, right? I want to be safe there. I like that moment where you got that moment of solace.
I don't
where
want
you
to be
can then
safe.
look at your map, because the maps now obviously are all in real time with RE7 and everything. It doesn't pause the game like it used to back in the day. So you look at the map, you can plan, you can forward think a little bit, and no, I'm not going to be wrecked by something. I've got this moment where I can just calm down. And then it's like, I've got to leave this safe space now. I've got to leave this to go out in it again. And that's what I like. And that's why I think it's so effective. But, well, I mean, we don't have long. We got, what, release date, May 7th?
Yeah, they revealed this May 7th, 2021, releasing on Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox X and S. So it is a cross-generational game. How do you guys feel about that?
I think I wasn't happy about it. However, apparently it is a PlayStation 5 title downgraded rather than the opposite. So it's okay. I would still prefer it to mainly be PlayStation 5, but then obviously the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox is such a huge player base.
But is that just because you have a PlayStation 5?
Yeah, of course it
because
is. Because
I know if I didn't have a PlayStation 5, I'd be cringing. I'd be crawling at the walls. I'd be as bad as that woman who jumped through the wall in the last Resident Evil. My God, I'd be so annoyed.
I'm kind of in two minds. Right.
Here we go.
When I first heard the news, I was gutted. And it made it audible that I was gutted. I was like, oh no, not another one. Because your thoughts automatically go to, well, the project's been held back. Because they can't go to the scale that they could do if it was just PS5. But when I put my rational head on, like Spencer said, it's designed for next-gen systems and then downgraded. Now, granted, we got a massive comparison here to how that can go wrong with Cyberpunk.
Exactly.
So there is a danger there, but really harshly, I've got a PlayStation 5. So it's not going to affect me. So I don't really care. I was in the impression, like they originally said, that this was a next-gen console game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that people can play this now, which they couldn't do before, especially as how constrained the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are. It's good that these wider console bases can play it, especially as Resident Evil games typically sell between 8 and 10 million units apiece, right? Not a massive game by any stretch. But who knows? Maybe this could be the game that beats Resident Evil 5 and becomes a 12, 13 million seller immediately. You just never know. And if they had limited that to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and PC, really you're saying, okay, well, we're going to get a max of like 4 million. Max, potentially, right? So it opens up then for Capcom to be happy with the performance of it. And it means that people aren't going to be gutted about the fact that they've missed out on this. However, it does make you question, is it even worth buying a PS5 at this point?
Davey, in the last episode, you asked us to put on our tinfoil hats. I'm asking you boys to put on your marketing hats, okay?
Sure.
So grab them off the shelf. Let's put them on for a sec.
I don't know where mine is, not going to lie. Hang on.
Hats on, hats on.
All right, got mine.
Simp's hat is away. Marketing hat is on.
You've got one of those big hats from the Resident Evil lady, yeah?
I do, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if you bought one for your wife.
Yeah, get her to dress up. That's next. A couple of months to go yet. We got things to build to.
Next level. So, marketing hats on, boys. Sitting in the offices of Capcom. As you know, that's the dream for all of us. That's where we're heading. You know, decision makers. We're releasing this game, and we figured out PS5 and Xbox S and S haven't had the sales that we were originally promised.
Sure.
Are we going to release our game on a console that doesn't have many players? I don't think we are. Of course we're going to put in the work, delay the game slightly, and make it available for the previous consoles. I don't see any issue in that because I'm looking at it from Capcom's point of view. I
Yeah.
want them to make more Resident Evils in the future. Hell, I want them to make more Devil May Cries. I want them to make more Street Fighter games. I love Capcom. Monster Hunter, bring it on.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 re-release?
Maybe not that.
What?
I was shit at Marvel vs. Capcom, and we all know that.
Yeah, but there's only one way to get better, isn't it? Have the game again. Get good.
Get good, bro.
Get good, mate.
But my point is, I'm completely happy with them selling to the mass majority as long as it's a PS5 game that's scaled down to PS4 as opposed to a PS4 game that's upscaled to PS5.
Could not agree more.
Exactly right, exactly. Do you know what? I think that's the thing that we've all had a little bit of solace in, is that if this was originally announced for PS4 and PS5, you go, oh, well, it's been held back, right? The same way that I feel about Horizon. Now I know that Horizon is originally a PS4 game, being upscaled to PS5. That's fact. That's fact. That's what it is. That's gutting. It's gutting because it means that the true realization of what that game could be, without being able to really have the kind of, just for example, right, Phil, I know you haven't played this game. So, Spence, you've played Final Fantasy VII.
I have. Remake, yeah.
Now, if that was designed for PS5, you wouldn't have those awkward moments where you're climbing under rubble every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it slows you down. It arbitrarily slows you down, and you climb under rubble, and you come out the other side, and then the game radically speeds up again.
Yeah.
And it's all a way of them masking loading.
Yeah.
Now, if that game had been designed for PS5, you wouldn't have that. So they'd have to think of another ingenious solution to be able to make it work on PS4. Now, this is the problem with Horizon, is that Horizon had been designed for PS4. It means that, sure, we're going to get adaptive triggers, we're going to get ray tracing, we're going to get all these extra features, which are additive, like 60 frames and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the game design is going to be based around the PS4, which is always just means that the game has been handicapped.
Well, obviously, as we all know, I've just played Devil May Cry, which was a PS4 title that's been upgraded to PS5. That feels like a PS5 title. And if they added, like, say they ported Last of Us 2 to PS5 and just gave it adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, and less load times, that would probably feel like a PS5 title as well. So it being PS4 and upgraded to PS5 isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, because the PS4 can handle a lot. They just have to obviously use techniques to mask loading.
I guess so. I suppose that's the only thing that I worry about, is that you do have to funnel your vision, which you don't have to do if you've got a PS5 compared to PS. Obviously you do, but you don't have to funnel it as much as you do with PS4. And I suppose that's the only reason why I'm okay with this in the end. As long as it doesn't go the same way as Cyberpunk and we get an absolutely balked experience, it should be absolutely fine.
So, guys, we haven't mentioned the crafting element yet of Resident Evil. What do you guys feel about that?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of it. Obviously, we saw the crafting menu, and we saw they kind of made a medical aid or whatever it was, a healing item. But that's all we've really seen of it. But I'm not sure how I feel about there being an actual individual crafting system.
Well, Resident Evil's always got a certain element of crafting in every single one.
Yeah.
It varies per title. So some titles, it could just be as simple as combining herbs or, putting certain things together to create certain ammos, like in Resident Evil 3.
Yeah, as you said, some are bullets, some are ammos, some are items that you craft, some that you need to collect certain things to move on with the story. So crafting has always been in Resident Evil.
Yeah, so I don't think it's anything too crazy. I suppose it's just like what we said in terms of the merchant, it's how they implement it. And as long as they don't go too far with it, then it's going to be absolutely fine. As long as you don't have recipe books or anything, You don't want to have something like Last of Us in terms of having a menu system where you can create a splint, you can create this, you can create that. You want it to be quite a simple component to the actual gameplay that just makes you choose between resources. Do you want to create a healing item, or do you want to create an explosive? Do you want to create a poison curer, or do you want to create acid rounds? Something like that you can then, you've got to make a choice.
If you think about it, the gun upgrades is pretty much a crafting menu anyway, but it would be nice, I suppose, to have options. Wouldn't that be nice within a Resident Evil game, that maybe you could upgrade a gun in a certain way because you were facing certain enemies, and then you could go back to the Duke and say, now I've got later in the game, and I'm facing these enemies which favor maybe their legs instead of their arms, for example, and then I can upgrade in that area.
I get what you mean. It just reminds me too much. I think I've been hurt too much by Monster Hunter, to be honest. Where like you've got like
it's a Capcom game. Hey,
it is. Where you've got like things that, depending on what weapon you're using, this has an elemental effect against this. I don't want it to get too in depth, you know.
That's where I was going. I was thinking, if people are down in the basement of the castle, maybe they're allergic to fire, for example.
Yeah.
It's that kind of element. But you did have that in Resident Evil 2 with kind of the IVs, and the plant people.
True.
They were allergic to fire. So why wouldn't you move forward with that?
True, and I suppose that's the same with all Resident Evils. There's always enemies that are weak against certain things. So certain bosses, and it won't tell you what they're weak against. You just figure it out from playing the game that certain enemies go down in 2 acid rounds as opposed to certain enemies who go down in 5 acid rounds. That's what it's all about. But Phil, you've got some notes on Resident Evil that you've kind of dug up across your research, right? Do you want to fill us in on some info? Because I haven't done any research on this because I kind of didn't want to get spoilt too much. But for the sake of the podcast, I probably should know. So do you want to fill me in on what you've discovered?
For sure. I've been reading the wiki for the new Resident Evil game. And as we know, this is the 10th major installment of Resident Evil, with this game being set a few years after the events of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. So I'm just going to read you an extract from the kind of description of the game here. Ethan's world suddenly comes crashing down once again when Chris Redfield's unexpected yet familiar face makes an appearance, setting off a chain of events that sees a distraught Ethan seeking answers to Chris. Shocking answers, and ultimately finding him in a mysterious village. Apparently, these events are set in Romania this time, so I don't know how Ethan has found his way from Louisiana, which is where the Baker House plantation was, all the way to Romania. So that's going to be interesting to find out how he's found his way over to Europe.
No, it's also curious. By the sounds of it, Chris is quite involved. Well, that's what I'm getting from that.
From that description, Chris is mentioned a few times, yeah.
Yeah, and you go to the village to find him.
Yeah.
By the looks of it.
I can't see him being in this too much. I can't. Because he's a bigger character than Ethan. He'll overshadow him. He can't be in it too much. He's got to be like the same way that Ada is in Resident Evil 2, which just comes in and out of the story as she needs to,
Ethan is very much the everyman, though. In the same way, I suppose, in like Half-Life, the character doesn't talk, right? Ethan is very much just there, and you play through Ethan. You really feel like you're Ethan. It's better that Ethan doesn't say anything, because you then become Ethan. The same as I said, Gordon Freeman from Half-Life. You put yourself in that position and it feels more real to you. When you're playing through the eyes of like Chris or, any other game where you take on that persona, then you're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not me. It's Chris that's getting attacked by all these zombies. When you're Ethan, it's you. You're feeling that every time.
I suppose this is something that's probably worth saying, actually. Probably worth going over before we dive into the actual maiden demo. Phil, obviously you're a long-term Resident Evil fan, same as myself. How do you feel about the fact that it's sticking now with these newer iterations, that it's sticking with the first-person view? Which do you feel is more kind of effective? And are you ultimately happy with the first-person viewpoint that you get from Resident Evil 7 and now going into 8?
To be honest, I don't think I favour either side of it. I think third person definitely worked for the games that it was in, and third person is quite a nice kind of experience and to experience things differently in the newer games. I don't think I have a favourite out of the two, to be honest. I think because Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, obviously they're remade and they're third person. If they were remade in first person, they'd be hella weird. But for these newer games to be in first person, I can totally get that. I'm totally on board with that.
I think, obviously, I've only played third-person Resident Evils. I've actually not played any first-person ones yet. But I think the third person was mostly just to do the game limitations back in the time and let them do a lot more with horror especially. But now I think the first-person view lets them do so much more in terms of like the atmosphere and stuff, scaring you, stuff around corners. Obviously, you have to literally peek around the corner, whereas in third person, your character would move and you'd get no extra vision. Whereas now you're literally moving.
I think with third person, it's fine when you're Chris or you're Claire or you're a character. When you're first person and you're Ethan, it's you. It's the same as Gordon Freeman, as I said with Half-Life. It's first person, so it becomes you. And I think these games put you in that position. The last Resident Evil has been perfect in that sense, that it put you in that position and you get to experience the horror. It definitely brings it on and definitely makes it more, scary to play.
I completely agree with you. I 100% agree with you. 7 is one of the best Resident Evils. The horror elements to it, the fact that the gameplay just transitions so well into a first-person perspective was phenomenal. It exceeded my wildest expectations. So seeing it return for Resident Evil 8 for me is something I'm very happy with.
I think that's the thing, though. When you're a Resident Evil fan, you've been through 1, 2, and you may have played a couple of the other games, right? So you know it for being a great game. You love those games, right? But for them to change it, you're worried.
Of course.
But they've changed it in such a way that actually it's become its own thing. The third-person Resident Evils, for me, are one thing. The first-person Resident Evils are quite different. They're following the same story, but they are different to play, very much so. I cannot wait to see more of it.
Well, speaking of more of it, we actually dived into the Resident Evil Maiden demo. So Resident Evil Maiden was announced at the showcase, and it was a demo for PlayStation 5 users, which obviously I was very happy about, being a PlayStation 5 user, as you were, lads. I can imagine other parts of the community weren't too impressed with that, but that's the hand they got dealt. Have you boys played the Resident Evil Maiden demo, and what is your thoughts on it?
I've played it. I've only played it once, but I screen shared it to my girlfriend as I played it because she'd already experienced it, and she wanted to see my reactions to it as I played it. And then I also made my sister play it as well because I thought it'd be funny to watch her play. And it was very funny, might I add. But I very much enjoyed it. Honestly, I didn't think it to be very scary. There was maybe one point that was scary, but obviously my girlfriend watching my screen share got more scared by it than I did, and she'd already experienced the demo.
Which was the part you felt was scary? Because I've played through it, and I thought there was quite a few points in it which I was really invested and really scared about, but I want that from Resident Evil.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I wanted it to be scary, so I wanted to not want to progress. I wanted to literally stand in a room and be too scared to hold forward on my analog stick. But it was the point in the dungeon where you obviously wake up, you start, and after you try to leave the door and you walk backwards, and then that body bag falls from the ceiling. That's the point where I didn't even find that scary, but my girlfriend I was on voice chat with her. She was watching my stream and she screamed. And that made me jump.
For sure, that's a jump scare in it, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But outside of that, I thought the whole kind of atmosphere of what's happening in the game and the things you read and walking behind one of the daughters and feeling like at any stage they could turn round.
Yeah.
There's something there.
You had that happen to you, did you?
Did you not?
You didn't see the daughter going up the stairs?
No, not
It was
at
when
all.
you come out of the courtroom. The courtyard room.
There was 2 times that you saw the daughters. Once you escape the dungeon, which of course is dramatically different to the gothic kind of like ornate castle that you actually enter into when you crawl out of sort of a bedroom.
Very RE1-esque.
Yeah, very nice.
It's a massive juxtaposition between where you start and where you end in that demo, definitely. But as soon as you open that door, she walks down the hallway.
Does she?
And yes. As soon as you exit her bedroom, you see her. And when you go downstairs and you look up, she's up there as well.
So let me kind of guide you through how I played it. So I played it with Lottie, my wife. She was sat in the chair next to me, and we played PT together. And PT, I was terrified of.
PT is still the scariest game I've ever played.
And we played the Resident Evil 7 demo together before that came out, and that was scary as shit as well. And so going into RE8, I was really terrified of this. And it started off, and I was really, really scared. So as I made my way out of the dungeon, right? Got out of the dungeon. I was really scared all through the dungeon. Really was.
Did you think one of those bodies was going to move in the dungeon?
100%.
Oh my God.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Either the woman sat down or the bloke who was hanging turned around. Then he rotates.
Especially when you got the cutters to open up that one where actually nothing happened in one of them.
Yeah.
You were like, something's going to happen. What's going to happen? There's actually nothing in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the
I
best
love it.
things
I
about
love
it,
it.
really, is that kind of building
Yeah.
tension.
Yeah.
And so as I was crouched the entire way, so I made no sound. Right, Spencer took the piss out of me on COD the other day.
You played
he
the
was
entire
like-
game crouched.
Yeah, because I don't want to make any sound. Right, makes perfect sense. So I play Resident Evil in Resident Evil 8 when I got no weapons, I got nothing. I'm crouching that entire game. I'm playing that on my knees. Right, so I was crouched. So when I came out of dungeon, I opened the door. There was no one there. I heard footsteps in the distance. I walked out, went round the corner, went into the place we need to go, into the first bedroom or wherever. I think down the stairs is the first place you go, actually, and then you go into, then you get the gem, and then you go upstairs right after that.
You get the ring, yeah.
Yeah. So I went down the stairs, hadn't seen a soul. Went into that room, absolutely fine. Got my gem, went upstairs, still no one, right? And I'm silent through this, still silent. I hadn't seen a single person. Went upstairs, unlocked the room. As I opened the door to come out, which I did silently, very slowly by walking through it, just like you could in Resident Evil 7, peeked the door, right? So the door just opens very slowly, so you make no noise. To my left, I see, I don't know if it was a marionette or if it's the mother standing there. There's a giant thing there with a dress right on the left. I remember this clear as day. Through the corner of my vision, I thought, fuck, she's gonna move and chase me, right? Turns out it was just a marionette, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, no shot.
I was cacking it.
This feels so different to my experience.
Yeah.
That was the scariest moment of the entire demo. Still hadn't seen the daughter. I got downstairs, then the daughter was there.
Yeah.
So she was almost just there, right? Like, she was probably down there anyway. And
She
so
wasn't.
I saw her, and I ran out, and then I got the ending. And
Right.
that was it.
Your experience, so much different to mine. I'll go through mine. Mine, I obviously just traversed everything. I had a bit of a mare with the ring, with the eye, because obviously I'm not a Resident Evil player. I was just like, where the fuck's the eye? Isn't the eye on the ring? And then I was like, obviously I fucking examined the ring. And I figured that out. But then the scariest moment for me of all of it was walking down the stairs and you hear the, I'm watching you.
Yeah.
That was scary. And then she's upstairs on the banister
That's
on your
what I
right
said.
as you're going down
That's
the
what I said.
stairs. And she's upstairs the whole time. And then she's literally been watching you the entire time. When you leave the courtyard room, when you first go in there and get the ring, she's walking up the stairs as you walk out. She was in the room directly forward of the courtyard room to the left. You walk down the stairs for the first time, you hear laughing from that room. She was in there.
I heard all these sound cues. The problem was, I think maybe because I was ducked, I literally couldn't see her. That could have been the thing. Because I was ducked, I literally could not see her. So to
That's
me, I was
crazy.
just like, oh, these are just sound cues. I was like, there's no one fucking there. So I even started running around in that central room. Because I was like, there's fucking no one here. So then I started exploring. I went upstairs. I had a look round everywhere upstairs to see if there's any items. There was nothing. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, this is just in my head.
It's crazy.
I didn't realize there was actually a person there. I honestly had no idea.
Davey,
crazy
you've been
insane.
listening to Machine Head too much because this is all in your head. Everything you're experiencing is you. It's not the game.
That's mental.
It really is.
That's mental
really is.
that I could have had all these moments and I just didn't.
Yeah,
How crazy is
you
that?
should play it again. You should
Play
play
it again.
15-minute
stand
demo,
up.
and we've had crazy different. Phil, is your experience the same as Spencer's?
I think mine is more similar to Spencer, but I think I'm more of a pussy than Spencer in the sense that I was scared all the way through it. You know, coming out of that prison cell, crawling through all that muck, you know, searching in the blood for all the items that I needed to get out of the prison, going up and peeking through, and I took it so slow. I didn't play. I played it in my living room, lights on. I didn't play on hard mode like Spencer likes to play Resident Evil.
Oh, I played it with lights off, mate.
But
You
I
didn't
played
play
it
with
lights off. I played it lights off with my headset
I was
on.
I was so invested into everything that was going on. You know, I'm reading the notes and I'm thinking, these notes were written
Yeah.
60 years ago. What has gone on in this castle? You know, at the start, when you look at these notes, there's a date at the top. The person that escaped before you, that happened 60 years ago. What has gone on? And then you meet these women later on into the demo, and they all look young. So there's some kind of vampiric, kind of like vampire-esque element to this, isn't there? Especially when you get into, I think, the cellar.
All you need to do is pick up a goblet, isn't it? And it's just literally, you pick up that bottle of wine, and that's just like maiden's blood or whatever it is. And everything's just all about, like, it's just, you go onto the dinner table just before you escape through the thing, and all the goblets on there are all just full of blood, like congealed blood, and it's all just very vampiric.
Well, one of the first places that you visit once you exit the dungeon before you go up to the bedroom is kind of a place where they're storing the wine, and there's lots of blood literally everywhere in that room. Yeah. And there's lots of cues to them enjoying that blood, in the sense that there's wine glasses on the table. There's blood literally everywhere. There's wine barrels. There's blood dripping out of those wine barrels.
Yeah, one of the best things I noticed, which was a bloody brilliant little nod, was you pick up a glass at one point, or like a chalice or whatever it is, and you see like the kind of red lipstick stain on it. And that's awesome, but also you can rotate the model, and as you like rotate it in, you see it's not lipstick, it's just a blood stain, and going all the way into the bottom of the glass. And I thought that was sick.
Just blood. But when you get introduced to the daughters as well, you get introduced to one of the daughters that we've seen multiple times. They're keeping the other daughters very hidden, aren't they? But you get introduced to the daughter, her face is covered in blood, as if she's been drinking it. She's been absolutely loving that blood, hasn't she?
Guzzling it down, Chaz. She's been absolutely
She's been two-handed.
Noshing it down.
Getting that blood in her.
I tell you what, I don't know how you guys can simp on her, because she needs a wash. She's bad.
Paying.
She really
She's
does.
Paying. She's paying.
She was the thing where I was like, ah! At the time, because I was like, as soon as she came out, she was the first person I saw in my playthrough, and she's like licking her lips or whatever with a little sickle. And I was like, nope. And I was just gone, right? And then as soon as that door opens at the end, and it's Mama Big Booby Lady Diminiscu or whatever her name is, comes out, I was like, oh, embrace me, mummy. And then her hand comes out, giant claw. And I was like, oh shit. No. and that was it. And I was like, wow, what an ending. What an ending. This is fantastic. I cannot wait. So hyped. Cannot wait.
So there's a couple of things in the game that sort of support their vampires, and there's a couple of things in the things in the game which I've noticed which says they're not vampires. Let's go into the reasons why I thought they were vampires based on the story. Okay.
Sure.
So in a note, the author opens the window and the daughter shrieks out, "Shut it!" As we all know, common law, vampires do not like sunlight. That's one of the main things.
True.
That pushes them towards they are vampires. Looking back at the showcase and the demo we saw, Dimitrescu, who's up in the parlour talking to Mother Miranda.
Yeah, Miranda, I don't have to imagine.
On the phone. And she's looking at a mirror and she has a reflection. So she is not a vampire.
Yeah.
So there's certain laws here that vampires do not like sunlight, but there's certain laws here where vampires have a reflection. What are we saying, guys? Are they vampires or are they not vampires?
Spence, give me your uninformed Resident Evil opinion first before I go in on this.
I think 100% they're vampires, but it's not just they're dead set everything we know about vampires. That's what they are. Obviously, they're a breed of vampire, but it's different. Like they are just people, infected people or whatever it is, but they have the tendencies of a vampire.
So you're saying they're not vampires then?
They're vampires, they suck blood, but they also eat meat. Because if you saw on the plates, there was meat and shit as well. I think they're just a mix of the two. They're zombie vampire things.
What's your take on it, Davey? Because you've been holding back slightly in my
he just
convoluted explanation here of why they're vampires or why they're not vampires. Because I've got no answer here. I'm just saying there's certain things in the demo and the showcase that push them towards being vampiric or some kind of like vampires of that nature. And there's lots of things in there that are like, actually, they've got reflection, so they're not vampires. What do you think?
Let's break it down. So the classic vampire, which you've explained already, they're not that, obviously. The reason why is because it's the Resident Evil universe. So it's obviously some kind of virus. Every single Resident Evil is always some kind of crazy virus. Be that the Ouroboros, the T virus, the G virus, the T Ouroboros virus, which it is in Resident Evil Revelations 2. There's always some kind of crazy virus, right? So obviously it's going to be some virus which is for immortality, I imagine. And the immortality virus is going to be something that keeps them young. And the way they do that is by taking plasma. Hence, they're vampiric in that way. That's how I'd explain it.
What I would think is obviously they like, the daughters especially, like the blood of men, they said. They're like, I've not had a man in ages or whatever it is. And they're proper keen for Ethan, aren't they? I think the baby they're kidnapping, we don't know, do we know the gender of the baby?
I don't have the gender on the baby, but something to add in before you go a bit further in what you're saying. One thing I read, they talk about this ceremony, right? That's happening. And that's why they've taken the baby away. There might be some sort of sacrifice that's happening with this baby. And of course, a baby is a virgin. So we're arcing back to like virgin's blood. Maybe that's the purest version of blood. So maybe that's the version they want.
This ceremony kind of aches back to what I was saying. I don't think it's anything to do with the baby's blood.
Okay.
It could be. I think it's to do with adding the baby to the house of Dimitrescu, making it another child of Lady Dimitrescu.
I agree with you. In my opinion, I'll be very surprised if there's actually anything supernatural here. Because with Resident Evil, there's never been anything supernatural. There's no ghosts. There's nothing like that.
Of course it's got to be a virus, mate. It's got to be some sort of virus within it. You can't have it being supernatural. They're not going to suddenly turn into vampires and werewolves, but they have vampiric kind of like tendencies,
qualities,
abilities and shit. Yeah,
that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean the only thing we can be glad of is that we don't have too long to wait. So a May 7 release, we can then learn everything we need to know. But I think it's pretty clear we're all pretty happy with the Maiden demo.
Brilliant, phenomenal demo.
Scary, mate. I loved it. I cannot wait for Village. Honestly. Most anticipated game.
Speaking of most anticipated games, you saw in the showcase, they showed the most anticipated Resident Evil property of all time. RE-verse.
Shut up. Shut your mouth.
What were your thoughts when they kind of announced RE-verse?
My thoughts, I just thought it was a cash-in. I just thought, do you know what?
Yeah.
We're going to do some sort of multiplayer where everyone can play all the characters which they love in a really kind of lazy,
soul-shaded fashion,
kind of like excuse for a game. But I know you've played this, Davey. You tried to get me to watch your Twitch earlier.
I have played RE-verse.
What did you think?
When I started RE-verse, I was under the impression that the video I was going to put out on my YouTube was going to be, I played it so you didn't have to. And that was the title that I had in mind for RE-verse. I played 2 hours of it now. I love it. I absolutely love it. It is so fun. The characters that you have in the beta, granted there's one map, which is a shame, but it's a beta.
It's a demo, yeah.
But the characters you have, so you can play as Chris Redfield, Leon Kennedy, Claire, Jill, Hunk. Oh, and Ada Wong.
Oh, always pick Ada.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
So what you do is you pick one of those characters, and each character has their own health, skills, damage, all these different stats for each of them. And they've each got their own individual weapons and their own individual skill. So skill could be, for example, if you're playing with Ada, her R1, she'll do a somersault kick. So she'll do a backflip kick, which will knock someone down. And her L1 will be that she jumps backwards and fires a bow and arrow with a rocket on it. And that will hit the ground and do damage, right?
Of course.
And you can switch between your main weapon, which is just unlimited ammo. No bother at all. It's just a pistol. It's very minimal damage, but you got unlimited ammo. Or you've got then a sub-weapon, which in the case of Ada would be like a bolt gun. Bolt gun's got single shots. You've got 8 rounds with it. Each shot does quite a bit of damage. What happens is that throughout the map, you've got different pickups. So you got health that you can just pick up whenever you need to, in the case of green herbs, obviously. And you've got little T-virus prototypes. And if you pick up the T-virus prototypes, it makes your aim better, makes you do more damage, and it means when you die, you transform into a better BOW. And the whole reason that the game is fun is that any enemy who kills you, your kill streak goes on to that player. So what it means is you then hunt them down to get your kill streak back. They don't get your kill streak. Like, say you're on a 10 kill streak. They don't get that.
No, but they store yours.
So what it
That's
turns
cool.
into is you then hunt that character. For example, a character like Jill, where she's got a landmines, you know if you down someone, say they've got no T-virus prototypes, they come back as a molded enemy from Resident Evil 7 and they're rubbish. They're no real threat. You can just take them down if you're Jill again. You just take them down, no worries, and that's Jill's their kill streak is gone. However, say they've got one T-virus prototype, they'll come back as Jack from RE7, or they'll come back as one of the hunters from RE3, and they're pretty damaging, but they're not too threatening. If you've got two T-virus prototypes, you come back as either Nemesis or Super Tyrant, and then you can mess them up, right? So someone like Jill becomes busted because you've got prototype mines, you got mines you can put down behind you, proximity, which then you can make sure you can get away from that if that happens to you. And so it becomes this real tug of war where you don't ever want to lose your kill streak, because your kill streak is what gives you points. So the more kills you get, the higher your kill streak, the more points you get, the easier you're going to win the match. And it's a full death match on the beta. And it is fantastic the way it works. Absolutely brilliant. Played 2 hours of it, and I've played every single character now 3 or 4 times. So fun. I literally can't rate it enough. It's so fun. I loved it. Plus, it also helps. I'm godlike at that game. It is so cursed that the game that I'm godlike at is RE-verse.
So it's not going to do bits at all.
No. I played 10 games. I think I won 8 first.
So, Davey, what are the characters that you're saying you're playing at the moment? You've said Ada Wong was one of them.
So you got Ada Wong, Claire Redfield, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy, Hunk, which is awesome. And that's it. And then for the enemy, the BOWs, you could turn to Nemesis, Tyrant, Jack from RE7. You could turn into an Alpha Hunter, and you could turn into a Molded. And I think that's it. I don't think I missed anyone.
Are they looking to add to that roster, or is that just locked in? Do you know?
I imagine they're bound to add to it. I mean, there's no Wesker in there, for God's sake. So obviously
that's where I was going with this. I was going to say to you guys, if you could have any character added to the RE-verse, what would it be? And straight away for me, it would be Resident Evil 5 Wesker. Doing the dodges.
Oh, in the trench coat, in the glasses. You know,
in the trench coat and the glasses, when you're on... Is it a ship?
He turns out loads of times, doesn't he?
He turns up a lot of times.
The ship at the end, yeah.
Yeah. That would be my hot take on this, would be Wesker. What about you, Spence, with your limited knowledge of Resident Evil? Where would you go?
I'd want the AI daughter from the RE1 movie.
That's pretty niche.
I feel like I'm going to be sick.
Thing is, right? So you collect like 10 viruses, whatever.
How's she going to hurt you?
And you die. Lasers.
Oh, Jesus.
What do you mean? How's she going to hurt you? She's going to cut you into bits, mate.
Why wouldn't you want the Red Queen from the Resident Evil movies? You're all gonna die down here.
Oh,
exactly.
The character I'd want would be a hunter. Hunters are my favorite enemies in Resident Evil. I love them. I think it's so challenging, and I think just being able to have that like kind of swipe, that jumping swipe that just kills you even if you're full health. Have that mapped to like an L1, and if you pull it off, it just has the unique animation of you taking their head off. Love that. I mean, a licker isn't in the game. A normal zombie isn't in the game. There's loads of ways.
A licker would be so cool because, we were talking about the ceiling takedowns, weren't we, in Spider-Man? Imagine if you could be a licker and you could do ceiling takedowns, so you could walk on the top of the map and you see everything upside down, but because your hearing is like so like impaired, like everything you hear is like over the top. That'd be cool if they like integrated that into the game.
That would be cool.
Honestly, I gotta say, I've gone from 0 to hero on this game. I love it. It's just fun. It's just fun to play. It's forgettable. It's fun. And there are some tactics to it. It's not very deep, but it's deep enough that even at the base level of tactics, of knowing when to engage and when not to, when to like rope a dope an enemy into another enemy so you can finish them off. These little tiny tactics that I picked up over 2 hours are brilliant. I honestly recommend everyone to try it when the game comes out because it comes free with RE8.
See, I'll happily try it, but back to the character I said we should put in. I think it'd be similar to like, you know, in Modern Warfare 2, you'd get a nuke at a 25 kill streak. I think, say you get a 25 kill streak, seeing as you said kill streaks are quite big in this game. You become the Red Queen. You hear, everyone in the map hears that, you're all gonna die down here. And then lasers just shoot out of every freaking wall in the building and everyone just eats shit.
I think the quicker they can distance themselves from the RE movies, the better.
You're wrong.
What are you talking about? Imagine Alice turns
Oh, dear
up.
God. Oh, God, Alice.
I don't want Alice to turn up. The Red Queen would be dope.
It depends which version of Alice, because there's definitely an overpowered version of Alice, but a normal villain,
Yeah, there is.
a normal version, Resident Evil 1, you know, the movie, Alice would be
She
fine.
didn't do anything in RE1. I think RE2 would be hype.
That'd be completely fine.
Oh, dear God.
If we saw the first Alice.
Don't. Just stop, boys. Just stop.
I love the movies. I love the
They're
movies. Me and Phil
terrible.
talk
I
about
love
the movies for a
You
long
can see
time.
my eyes. I love it.
Oh,
Love
my
them.
God.
I love the movies.
I'm so sorry, listener. I'm so sorry. Before we move on to the next topic, is there anything else you want to add on about Resident Evil 8? Anything that piqued your interest?
Yeah, there's one other thing I kind of want to discuss about the topic. Really, the price of Resident Evil 8 is a bit strange to me. Because obviously, as we know, we thought it would be a £70 PS5 game. Turns out it's only £55 or 50-ish pound. And then the Digital Deluxe is only an extra tenner. And the Collector's Edition, absurdly might I add, is £220, which I hate.
It's fucking ridiculous.
I think it'd be fine. It would be fine if in America it wasn't $220 for them. Because that makes no sense for it to be £220 for us.
Yeah, that would be like $199, right? Over here.
It'd be cheaper than that. It'd be $160.
That's just daylight robbery. When they showed that collector's edition on the showcase, I thought, oh my God, yes. I can get a nice statue of Chris in the collection, put him in the display cabinet. And I kind of set a price point for myself around about 170, 169.99. I think that's kind of the maximum I'd go for it. Seeing 210, oof, I'm not paying that. Let alone 220, Jesus, no way.
Because on the Twitch, we all predicted prices. You know, I was very much
Yeah.
lowball in the sense that I thought potentially it'll be under the £100 mark. Thinking that, you know, if games are pitched at $70, that potentially all the extra stuff, because I don't think there's a lot in that collector's edition really, other than the statue,
No.
of any substance that should be worth
No,
any
it's not.
money.
No, but it doesn't matter because it's a collector's edition. They'll bump the price regardless. They always
That's
do.
true. The statue's the big thing, isn't it? I mean, like, I got to think back. When I bought my Dragon Ball Xenoverse collector's edition, I got a statue of Goku with that. That statue itself's worth 90 quid, and the
Yeah.
collector's edition was 150. So anything actually, like with that, including the art book and the stickers and all the random little bollocks I got with it, it's not actually a bad price. Especially as that's limited to like a couple of thousand as a different variant to it. Not bad at all. But as soon as you get into £200 price mark, that's a big ask for anyone. Even me, a hardcore Resident Evil fan, I'm not paying that. I'm just
Yeah.
not.
Another issue is they haven't actually told us the size of the statue.
That's the thing that's kind of worrying me. You know, if it's an 8-inch, that's like the biggest daylight robbery I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, if it's like a wine bottle, then it's going to be a totally different kind of ballpark, isn't it?
I was going to ask, how does that, you know, the size, measure up to the wine bottle? You know, that's how we're measuring things these days, by wine bottles.
It's all about the girth, isn't it? It's all about the girth and how kind of bulky it is, and that's all it really comes down to. You know, if it's a skinny little thing at like 10 inches or whatever, you wouldn't think twice. But if it's bulky, big set thing, big monster, then that's quite happy. But still, I'm not paying 200 quid for it. I'd expect a premium sideshow collectibles kind of level for 200 plus quid.
So the statue we're talking about isn't the only thing that comes along with the collector's edition. You also get an art print and steelbook. You get a cloth map of Resident Evil 8. You get an art book. You get a collector's box packaging, as well as a Trauma Pack DLC card, right? Which, as we know, is the Mr. Raccoon weapons charm and the survival pack. $220 or pounds?
Both. In America, it's $220, and here is £220.
Crazy money.
It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. It should be way cheaper here than it is there because the pound is worth more than $1.
Tell what's also nuts. When you think back to Dark Souls 3, I bought a collector's edition for that. I had a statue with that. I had a cloth map, and I had an art book with it. A full art book. I mean, an actual book. Not like a little tiny little thing, an actual book. And that was £130 with a steel book that came with it. Fantastic value. You think, okay, that's brilliant. I'm really happy with that purchase. 220 is an absolute muggery.
There's other versions available. Of course, we've got the deluxe edition, which is the Resident Evil Village, as well as the Trauma Pack DLC. And then we've got an edition which not only includes Resident Evil 8, but includes Resident Evil 7 as well.
I think that's actually a really good bundle, the 7 and 8.
Which bundle are you guys looking at? Because I've got 7, so personally, I think I'm just going to pre-order 8.
I mean, I've got 7. I got it on the PS Plus collection.
I don't care about these pre-order bonuses. The raccoon charm for the weapon, I ain't interested in, as we mentioned on our Twitch stream. And the survival resource pack, I don't want to cheat my way through the game because I want it to be hard.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same way I feel about it. At the end of the day, I don't care about the pre-order stuff. It's the same way that for Resident Evil 3, I got some pre-order weapons. Resident Evil 2, I got some pre-order weapons. I'm not installing them. I don't care about them. I don't want them. I want to have the base experience. I want to experience it the hardest kind of level it can be, the way that the developers meant it to be played. I kind of ruined Dead Space for myself back in the day because the order I bought it with, there was this skin for the PlayStation 3 that was exclusive that was 50p. So I bought it, right? I played the game years after it came out. It came out in like 2008. I played it in like 2010. And there was this skin, 50p. And I thought it just looked cool. It was black with the blue lights on it. And I thought, oh, it looks awesome, right? Bought it. What I didn't know was it was the max level suit. So it meant for the entire game, I didn't have to worry about suit upgrades. And it kind of ruined the game for me because it was easy. I didn't have to worry about using my resources on suit upgrades. So I don't want to make that mistake again, especially with Resident Evil. No. So I don't care about pre-orders. I just want the game. So I pre-ordered it myself already. I've already pre-ordered it through Shop2. So I pre-ordered it for £48, which is an absolute steal. I think that's a fantastic price for the game, especially being compared to 70, which we just paid for, Demon's Souls.
I hate it. I hate all these pre-order bonuses. I think they should go down the same route that League of Legends does, right? So ultimately, they should probably just give you vanity items within the, collector's edition, as opposed to anything that actually impacts the gameplay.
Yeah, I completely agree.
The thing I really loved about one of the collector's editions, I think it was for RE2, was you managed to get a save theme swap. So it meant that you could play the classic RE2 save theme instead of the new one they've done. And I thought that's like a really nice little touch that you can then change that whenever you want to. It's actually something I've bought myself. I think it's £1.50 on the store at the moment. Fantastic little purchase if you're a fan. Just a way for you just to replay the game again. You're in the save rooms a lot of time. Just to get that classic bit of nostalgia for £1.50. Christ, that's what a bargain. I'm more than happy to do that. I don't want to have to, like you said, Phil, pay £200 to get an unfair advantage in a game that ultimately is about a challenge. It just seems a bit detrimental to the overall experience. I completely agree with you. Vanity items, perfect. I'm not about locking them behind a paywall. I don't think that's fair. Yeah. But I think there's a way that, if you complete the game, you unlock the suits. That's fine. But if you've got the collector's edition, you get them from the off.
So, boys, now that we've finished our conversation on Resident Evil, for now anyway, how about we dive into the little bits of news that we've been looking at throughout the week? Obviously, we always look into things that interest ourselves. What have you boys found today? Phil, how about you?
Okay, something that sort of piqued my interest. I'm a massive fan of The Last of Us 2, the same as you, the whole franchise, you know. I love the games as much as I hate to admit that Davey pushed me on to this franchise.
It's a brilliant franchise. Davey did you a blessing.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a messiah.
You're a pusher, mate.
A pusher, but I'm a pusher in the best kind of way. Not like a bit rapey. I mean, like the best kind of way that you push stuff on someone, you know?
No, a bit more druggy.
Yeah,
A bit
exactly.
more
Yeah.
drug. Anyway. So I've read that The Last of Us 2 is now the most awarded game in history. Can you believe that? 92 of those awards were fan voted. Like, it's crazy. The amount of awards that game has got. Incredible.
The thing I'd say is this just puts to bed the argument that got raised to us a couple of episodes ago about how the fact that if the fans voted for all the things, would it be different?
For sure.
And the answer is no, it wouldn't.
So that's my hot take of the week. How about you, Davey? What have you picked up on?
Well, for me, the biggest thing, and it's something that I know you'll be very thrilled about, Phil,
Okay.
is PS Plus for this month.
Amazing.
PS Plus for February, we already knew that we were going to get Destruction All-Stars. And it was
Yeah,
only
of
last
course.
week, actually, on the 2 weeks ago on the podcast, we were talking about how we didn't know what was coming. But it turns out we didn't actually know what was coming in February, because this month is probably one of the best months we've ever had in PS Plus offering. So just to give you guys a bit of context, we got Control Ultimate Edition, which as the PS4 and PS5 versions, Destruction All-Stars, which we already knew about, and Concrete Genie, which was a PS4 game. Unfortunately, it was released on exactly the same day that they decided to do an interview which went live about the PS5 for the first ever time. So the game got completely overlooked. It got washed from all media. It had no chance. It was basically sent out to die. And by all accords, it's a fantastic game. So I'm so looking forward to diving into it. I mean, I've already played Control and platinumed it from PS Now, so I'm not interested in going back to it, even though it's got all the DLC, it's got everything in it. But I am mega hyped for Destruction All-Stars, especially following the state of play they had the other day. And I'm really excited to get into Concrete Genie, so I am so hyped about this month. Spence, you haven't played any of these games. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I haven't played a single one. Obviously, Destruction All-Stars is new. Control's been out for a while, but I knew it had issues on PlayStation 4, especially the base version of PlayStation 4, not as much the PS4 Pro. And I had the PS4 Slim, so I didn't really fancy buying it because I care about frame rates and such. And now that it's coming out in PS Plus for free, the Ultimate Edition with a PlayStation 5 patch, and I have a PlayStation 5, I'm going to play the shit out of Control. Hopefully go for the Platinum, because apparently it's quite easy.
It is an easy platinum. Yeah, I got it. It's a really easy platinum. And I tell you what, it's just one of those games. It reminds me of a game on PS2 called Psyops. Did you ever play that?
I know the name, but I can't think of the game.
It was developed by Midway back in the day, same developers of Mortal Kombat. And it is fantastic. It's basically just a game where you've got telekinetic powers, so you can throw fire, pyro-telekinesis or whatever it is. You can throw people, you can mind control people. It's exactly that, but just in a modern setting, just unfortunately with a really shit plot. And people love the plot.
I've heard that, but is it not just complex, or is it bad?
I'd say it's bad. And I'd say that the way that the game is designed around its story is just bad. The way when you play it, you'll fall one or two camps. I think it's like Marmite. You're gonna either agree with me or you're not. And most people seem to disagree with me, which I totally accept. You're wrong, but I totally accept your opinion. So the problem is that you go into a kind of cutscene, and instead of it just being a cutscene, it's a cutscene that then she's monologuing to herself. It's like you're watching a 90s Spider-Man cartoon episode.
As if she's recalling her memory from the past.
Kind of, she's just chatting to herself. And I'm just like, I don't really care what you... I just don't care. All I want to do is just throw people. And throw stuff at people and fly around. And that's what the game does. The game's got so much fun in terms of its gameplay that it's phenomenal to play. So much fun. The upgrade system is a bit shit. I didn't think the upgrade system was very good. But in terms of getting the platinum and playing the game through, it's interesting. It's dynamic in terms of the places you go. And it's well worth a playthrough. I really enjoyed my time with it. I don't think it's as good as people rate it as, but it is fun to play.
Sure.
Phil, you asked last episode, what would be a month to get you involved with PlayStation Plus? Is this something that would make you do that jump and make you get on board with it?
I don't know. I've heard a lot about Control, and I've heard a lot of positive things about Control. So potentially it could interest me. But what I'm looking at is what's available to me currently to play. And I have
Sure.
Arkham Collection, which you bought me recently, Davey. I've got God of
Games.
War to finish.
Great.
And if I'm going to go back to PS5, I'm going to platinum Miles Morales rather than playing these games, I think.
I think that's fair.
So my topic today, boys, is about Returnal being pushed back a month,
Oh, no.
delayed to 30th of April 2021. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you say in April to me. My immediate thought is, isn't that the release date for Ratchet?
So as far as we know, not confirmed, but obviously we guessed around that period.
But possibly it's going to come out around that area, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we said last time, if you guys remember, we kind of all placed bets on where we thought Ratchet was going to go. So
Yeah.
Spencer, you were saying April, if I remember rightly.
Mm-hmm.
Phil was saying May. And then I was kind of going between you both. I was saying end of April, start of May, right?
You prices righted us, yeah.
You've sat on the fence.
I did indeed. Now, I think this delay from Returnal throws our prediction completely out the window, which is kind of on topic for what our podcast is, where we kind of guess stuff and then we get it completely wrong. I think more than anything, this kind of confirms that Ratchet isn't going to release in that window at all. Because
No.
you got to think, May we got Deathloop, so
Yeah.
if then we got Returnal in April, it means surely Ratchet is being pushed down the line. Surely not. They're not going to release them on top of each other, I'd imagine.
We also have Resident Evil in May as well,
True. That's a May 7th.
which we all thought that was going to be April,
Yeah.
and then now that's May, which everything's getting delayed by the seems of it. Even if it's just our opinions of when it's going to come out, it seems to be later than we always think.
Yeah. Do you reckon that's down to COVID or what?
It could be down to so many different things.
Well, you guys have been playing cards, and there's been so many issues. Don't you think it's down to that? Don't you think it's down to development companies not having enough time to be able to put these games out initially?
No, I don't think so. I think
No?
I think a lot of it with the PlayStation 5 is actually just the case that it's quite a complicated machine and it's just not properly optimized yet. I
So
honestly think it's just-
ultimately, they haven't had enough time.
I don't think it's. Well, you could blame it on the game developers. I think it's mostly down to Sony, to be honest. I think it's just the UI is just not that stable. That's what I think it is, because it seems to be a constant across every single game I've played.
Yeah.
And surely you're not going to have bugs on every single one. Surely it's got to be something with the platform itself, because you're not seeing people complain about this on cross-gen games on PS4. So surely it's the PS5 itself, I imagine, that's having these issues rather than the game.
The games being made.
Yeah, that's my
To be fair,
theory of it.
the only game I think I've experienced so far that hasn't had any bugs or crashes has been Bugsnax, which is a bit weird to say.
Bugsnax Game of the Year 2020, 2021.
And Astros as well, but Astros obviously was made
I had a bug
dedicated
on
for
Astros.
PS5. Oh yeah, you crashed.
Yeah, I crashed and lost an entire level.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep. That was on day one of PlayStation 5. That was a good little moment that made me realize, oh Christ. So
That was terrifying, I remember that.
yeah, so I'm gutted about it being pushed a little bit, especially as the fact that you've then only got a week with it before Resident Evil comes out. So it means I'm
Yeah.
not going to have the time I really want to sink into it, especially with juggling a full-time job, a baby, a wife, all these things together. It's going to be difficult for me to put the time I really want to into Returnal, so it might end up meaning that Returnal gets pushed a little bit before I end up picking it up, which I am quite gutted about. But that's just the name of the game sometimes. And ultimately, if Housemarque need that time to make it the better experience and the kind of standout, ultimately, it's only the second PS5 exclusive that we've got on the console. First one was Demon Souls, and now it's Returnal. So it's got to be good. It's got to stand out. And if it doesn't, then people are going to kick off. So I'd much rather them take their time with it. If they need that extra month, so be it.
I totally agree with you in the sense that if a game's developer needs that time to be able to craft the perfect game, then let's give it them. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah.
Like I don't need game after game after game. I would rather wait for something that is perfect.
I think a lot of people right now are quite skeptical about game delays due to Cyberpunk having been delayed so many times for so long,
For sure.
and still coming out an absolute piece of shit. I think a lot of people are worried that all these delays just mean something's wrong with the game, and they might not have enough time to fix it.
I think that's unfortunate. I've seen that a couple of times myself on Twitter, actually, where people have commented under the actual main post and said, well, it never helped Cyberpunk. It's like, well, come on. That's one game out of, like, pretty much every game recently has been delayed, hasn't it? I mean, Last of Us got delayed, twice? All these different games get delayed. They generally do. You can't trust the release date. Christ. God of War is still stated for this year. If that comes out, I will literally eat my simp hat. These people say about these things and say, like, oh, Cyberpunk didn't get it, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't mean shit. At the end of the day, each developer is unique. And the difference is SIE and the individual studios they work with, they haven't really let us down with these delays. So until that kind of happens, you kind of got to put your faith in them and say, well, so far, it's been for the better cause that they've delayed these games rather than release them in half-assed states, which unfortunately, Cyberpunk didn't follow. And that's why we're in the state we are with it.
How many games have come out, right, that have been delayed, and ultimately you haven't got the product you've hoped for?
Duke Nukem Forever.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Yeah, good point.
I pre-ordered that game. And played it day one.
I mean...
And let me tell you, it was not amazing.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, I got that game. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I didn't think it was worth waiting 11 years for.
No, it wasn't.
We've got to chew bubblegum and kick ass, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get the Donkey demo that I was promised on PC when I bought PC Gamer because it had Duke Nukem on it. I didn't get that, and that's how long ago it was. They had a PC that I was trying to run AVP2 on that I couldn't run on, and I bought PC Gamer magazine so I could watch a trailer for Duke Nukem back in the day. It's before the internet was past in its 512 KB phase. So, grim times. Spence, you probably weren't even alive. You're probably still sperm at that point.
Might have been, mate. Might have been.
Yeah, grim times. Phil, you were a grown man working a job at the tender age of 45.
Probably in Summerfield, serving cigarettes to no homeless.
Minus.
People were milk tokens.
Oh, dear God. Good times. But yeah, I think ultimately, if it's for the benefit of the game, that's absolutely fine. I mean, what's your opinion on it, Spence?
I think it's fine because, like, the Cyberpunk issue's a lot different, whereas they had so much hype and stuff to ride off with Returnal. There's not as much hype around Returnal, and there's probably not a lot of shareholders pressuring them to make the game perfect. So they're probably at a state where they're just like, we do want to make the game the best it can be, let's just do it. Even if it takes an extra month, let's take that month and do it. Which I'm sure they had the same thought process with Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk had too much going on. Returnal has way less going on. There's way less pressure on them to make it phenomenal. It's fine, I think. I'm not really too worried about it. So many games, probably 90% of every game gets delayed. It's fine.
Software development is pretty much that, though. Like, you always think you're going to deliver at this point, and then something happens, and then it's delayed. Video games seems to live by this date and die by this date. You know, if I'm saying I'm going to deliver on time and you deliver and it's not what people thought it was going to be, ultimately you have delivered and they've paid their 40, 50, 60, 70 pounds for the game. You know, there's sometimes where people have to wait and it's delayed and they get annoyed and frustrated at the company and it just goes on and on and on. It's just so difficult to sort of deal with, you know. Like, if I'm a company and I'm putting out a brand new game ultimately, I want to please the people I've hyped it up to. A lot like Cyberpunk, we've hyped it up and hyped it up and hyped it up, haven't we? And they just didn't deliver on time to them. So they've just pissed them off, regardless if it's a good game or a bad game. They've just pissed them off.
Personally, I don't think a game really should show its release date until it's gone gold.
I agree with you. I think the later they show release date, the better. At the end of the day, it's like the Square Enix philosophy. They showed, Final Fantasy VII Remake, like 6 years ago before it came out? Why? Like, there's no point. Same way that Bethesda are doing with Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, whatever it is. There's just no need. They even announced Elder Scrolls, the newest Elder Scrolls, and they said, oh, by the way, we're not actually starting active development on that until we release Starfield, which is the game we just announced today. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why? Why? Why are you even bothering, right? There's just literally no point to it. You might as well just hang fire. People don't need to know about it. And I do agree with you. I totally agree with you. The later you can do it, the better. Only thing I'd say, Cyberpunk went gold and still somehow got delayed and still fucked up. So, I mean,
I don't know that.
I think Cyberpunk's just the edge case, isn't it? That's just the worst case it can be.
For sure.
What I think they should do, personally, I think this would be hype as fuck, you know. If, like, say Square Enix for FF7 Remake just never showed off anything, and then when the game's done, they show off a trailer and everyone's like, oh, FF7 is back, let's go. They're like, it's out next month, by the way.
I think I'd be fine. Do you remember what they did with Fallout 4? Where they literally said at E3, they're like, this is the first time you're seeing it at E3. By the way, it's out in November. And that was it. And it's just like, wow. Yeah. And it turns out the game was average. But, you know, people were happy, like, over the moon with it. And that's a fantastic dev cycle. You got literally then, like, 4 months or 5 months of just full-on coverage. It's in everyone's mind. It's in everyone's real estate. Whereas a game like Dying Light, for example, now going to something that actually is coming out, was announced years and years ago. It's been shown twice. Now it's gone dormant for ages, and people are now wondering what's even happening with this game. So when it gets renewed on this press cycle, people are going to be really dubious about it. And that's the danger. Yeah. That's the danger you get into.
Wouldn't it be cool? You see the showcase, and you know they're always like, this, you know, like Apple do, where they're like, it's going to be released right now. If they did that with games.
They'd be sick. That's my whole point.
The only problem is you need to have a full digital marketplace for that. Like someone like Steam or Valve could do that. Like they could just turn around and be like, by the way, boys, it's a random Wednesday, Half-Life 3, baby. And boom, and like break the internet, right? And it wouldn't matter because they don't have to do physical distribution. But if you somehow had to get that into game stores or Asda, Tesco, you know, wherever, right, and spread it round so it's going to be day one, like from midnight, some random guy is going to be like, fuck me, we got God of War 2 out right now. Like, we got it in store. It hadn't even been announced.
Yeah, he's going to leak it on Reddit. They could do it. They just couldn't do it's out right now. They'd literally have, unless they were like, digital downloads of this game are out right now. Like they did with Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry 5 on PS5, the digital edition was available on launch, but the physical edition was available a month later.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, they could do that.
Mad.
They could do something like that, or like I said, they could have it release, just show off the first trailer of like some sick brand new game and be like, next month it's out, by the way.
Or
£200.
Or, as we've always gone for with this podcast, is why wouldn't they release the first level of a game? And they're like, if you're going to buy the next Resident Evil, you can have the first 10 minutes of it. Today. Right now. If you buy it now, you can have the first 10 minutes of it. Or you can have the first half an hour of it.
Do you remember, on the PS4, there's something that a lot of people don't remember, but the PS4, when it was originally released, was promised that we were going to have demos for every single game, where you could play it before you buy it. And it never came to fruition.
That's up to the game developers and the studios, surely. Like, Sony have no control over that, really.
Well, they could have done what, like, Steam do, where you can get a free game trial, where you can play it for like an hour, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's just buying a game then refunded it.
But they could have done a similar thing, and that was how the PS4 was originally pitched. They were going to do that, and it just never implemented. The first lineup of games did. The first lineup of games, they all had demos, and then it just kind of didn't stick. I think it's a good idea. The only problem is that certain games start strong and certain games don't. And the first hour of some games is trash. And it can put you off. Like Wolfenstein, the original Wolfenstein on PS4. That first hour is terrible. But the rest of the game, the rest like 7-8 hours, is fantastic. But you need that first hour to really get you invested into it.
Yeah.
But you really don't do anything. The time to fire on that game is fucking awful. It's literally half hour before you even like shoot something. It's terrible. Great game, nonetheless. And so that could kind of put people off. So, and you got development effort, and normally you know what it's like with demos. They give you overpowered shit so you can experience the systems and see what the game's like. It's kind of like its own unique experience, much like Maiden is, I suppose, to Resident Evil 8. Totally different experience.
To oppose Phil's point, they can't really do 10 minutes of like the beginning of a game, just because there are so many times where they've released a little bit of a game and people have data mined that game and discovered everything to do with that game. So it's not really possible.
It's a good point. I suppose it's that extra risk, isn't it, to the developer and to the publisher, that all their secrets and all their marketing hype could just get exposed immediately. Good point. Spencer.
Yes, mate.
I notice in our webcam, you've got different headset on
I do, mate.
compared to what you normally use. Is that the Pulse headset?
It is the Pulse headset, mate.
When the PS5 first came out, they were impossible to find, so I couldn't even remotely get one. I was desperate for one at the time. How did you get one? What are your thoughts on it? And just give me your general review on the headset.
I've been quite keen for this headset for a long time. And I've been checking Amazon and Argos just all the time. And the other day I just randomly checked Argos and it said, click and collect Sunday. And I was just like, oh my God, are you serious? And I checked and yeah, it was just in stock 2 minutes up the road from me to click and collect. So I just bought it then and there, collected it on the Sunday, got home, used my headset. All you have to do is plug the little USB dongle into the PlayStation 5, connects immediately. And I'm using my Pulse. And it is nice. I will say, first thing I'll say about the headset, the build quality doesn't feel worth £90. It really doesn't.
So just for our listeners, what were you using pre-episode 9?
Prior to this, for the podcast, I've been using my AirPods. But whilst gaming, I've been using my Razer Kraken 7.1s. And I've had those for years. Those are disgusting at this point. They are absolute mank.
How are you feeling about the audio quality between the three sets of headphones, I suppose, you've been using? Because I think, Davey, you've been using the same headset. What are you using currently?
So I'm using Astros. I'm using Astro A40s. I love them. I absolutely love them.
So I'm using the Bose Quiet Comfort 35s. But Spencer, I'm interested to hear how the Pulse headset works with the PS5.
Well, basically, it's just a little dongle, a little USB dongle. You plug it in, and literally there's a little on and off switch. You flick it on, and it automatically connects to just whatever it's plugged in. Like the little dongle, you plug it into your PS5, connects right away. You plug it into your PC, connects right away. And I've heard as well that you can connect it even into your Switch, and it'll work right away. So it's just very simple. A very, very simple connection process.
Have you got any wired functionality in that headset or not?
I do. I can plug it in through just a basic headphone jack. I can plug it into the DualSense if I wanted to, if it was out of battery. Plug it into my phone.
Does that improve the audio quality being directly into the DualSense?
I've not heard that it improves the audio quality, but I've heard that it improves the mic quality very weirdly. It's strange, but I've heard that it sounds a lot better when it's plugged in.
What's the battery life on them? Have you used them for extended time on a game?
I've used them quite a lot. The battery life is typically, it's said to be 12 hours. And I've used them for quite long sessions, but I'm not even sure if they make a noise like most headphones do when they're about to run out of battery. I literally have no idea because I don't think I've even become close to draining the battery life on these.
Did you play your entire time through on Devil May Cry 5? Did you use those headsets?
I used them right away out of the box. So they were probably...
And you completed the entire game in one set with them on?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
I was already like 5 missions in. Or 5 chapters in. So it was maybe 15 chapters I played. Because it's 21 chapters total.
So how long would that be in real time? Like 6-7 hours?
Yeah, 6-7 hours. And they were only on half charge out the box.
Wow. That's brill. That's really good. That's pretty glowing.
Yeah, it's really good.
So you said about the build quality not being so good. So what is it then? Is it the speaker cups? Is it the headband? What is it that makes it a lower kind of quality for 90 quid? 'Cause 90 quid isn't very much for speakers.
No.
I don't think.
It feels fine when it's on your head. It feels nice. It's just holding it and feeling it. It feels like the plastic they used wasn't that expensive, especially when like my Kraken 7.1s felt quite premium for what they were. They were only a £60 headset when I bought them. A different headset I was looking at was the Arctis 7Ps, because they support 3D audio as well, and they have a metal aluminium frame. So those are very good, and they support all the same stuff. But I went for these mostly just because they were in stock, and the Arctis 7Ps weren't. And they're also £60 cheaper.
But it's also nice to have, like PlayStation official stuff if you're playing a lot of PlayStation, isn't it?
Yeah, I am very happy with it, yeah. It does make me feel a lot better. Mostly just because these days I'm mostly playing on the PS5, and these are made specifically for that platform. It does feel good.
Have you used them to listen to music, like with your phone and kind of like on the bus or on the train or anything like that?
Well, I've not really left my house, to be honest with you. I've used them for music a bit, because obviously I'm using them with my PC. I'm using them on PC right now. And when I've been playing Smash, I played Smash with David the other day. I used this headset whilst we were playing, and I had music on in the background, and music sounds fine. I'm not going to say it sounds amazing. It probably sounds equal to my Razer Krakens, but my beats would have sounded better in terms of music.
Fair. On the PlayStation 4, I used to have a PlayStation 4 Gold headset,
Sure.
which is one of the wireless ones specifically made for PS4 at the time. And there was an app you could download called the Headset Compatibility app. And what it meant was you could kind of customize how you wanted the game to sound. So you could customize the bass to treble to mid, all that, and you could set your own EQ.
Sure.
And it was fantastic. And you had 3 different settings, and on the headset itself, it had a mode button, and you could click mode, and it would move between the different sets. So if you had one that was set for first-person games, you could then increase the bass, so you could hear footsteps easier. And I used to love that headset. I thought it was brilliant. And it got supplemented and replaced by my Astros, which I was really happy with that purchase. Do you have anything like that on the Pulses, or have they kind of got rid of that functionality?
They've definitely gotten rid of that functionality, but that sounds bloody amazing. I wish they kept that. That sounds awesome.
It was fantastic. Yeah, the Gold headset at the time, I think the original one they did was 90 quid, and then it got discounted, and they replaced it with a more premium model,
Sure.
which they had a gold and they had a platinum above that as well. So the platinum, I think, had like metal framing on it and stuff like that. But ultimately, it was the same headset, really. No real difference, other than the one was like a kind of softer leather than the other. But generally, it was the same kind of headset in terms of the innards. I'm really surprised they haven't put any modes or anything like that on it. It seems like a little bit of a wasted opportunity. What you might find is that over the course of this next year with PlayStation, they might add in that headset functionality app, because I know it's something I use all the time. And what was really handy was specific games on PS4 had their own EQs, which you could download directly to the headset. Killzone Shadowfall, for example, on PS4, plug in the USB dongle into it, go onto the headset compatibility app and download that directly to like EQ1, for example, on mode, and then done. And then literally it would just be the perfect EQ for that game. And it was just fantastic.
That's super interesting that, certain games sync up with the headset. That's a reason to buy the official headset for certain games, isn't it?
That is crazy.
As opposed, there's so many headsets on the market that, that people love and people know for being like quality. You've mentioned Beats, Davey's got his headset, I've got my headset. But having the PlayStation 1 that gives you something extra with a specific game, that's a reason to buy that PlayStation headset, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll be surprised they don't add that into the Pulses. I mean, the Pulses have been really, really, they've been really popular. I mean, they've been reviewed. The reviews are like really high. People are giving them like 9s, 10s out of 10s, things like that for what they are. I mean, for 90 quid, that's such a bargain. Yeah. That's such a good price for a headset. I mean, Phil, how much did your headset cost you?
My headset was actually a gift.
Oh, okay.
So I would hate to ask how much my headset cost, but it was definitely more than 90 quid.
Yeah, like mine brand new is 150. And so for 90 quid, I mean, Christ, to get it so that it works perfectly, and as you're saying, for the sound for your games and stuff. I mean, you finding, we're playing Call of Duty, you find you're picking up footsteps okay, you finding the kind of audio balance with chat and game. Are you finding that's kind of okay in terms of the mix?
I'm finding it nice because obviously whilst we're playing Call of Duty, we're in party chat. And typically when I was using my Krakens whilst we played, I would just find the right balance and just leave it at that so that I could hear you clearly and my game would be a bit quieter, but I could still make it out. Whereas now, whilst we're playing, as soon as we leave the in-game, there's a party dial on the headset. So as soon as we leave the game, I'm turning you up to the max so the game's minimized and I can just hear you so we can have a good conversation. Then as soon as we enter the game, I'm just pressing one button 2 or 3 times and I can still hear you, but the game is the main focus.
See, that's such a nice little addition. Whereas for mine, I've got to press the PS button, go into the quick access menu, go into audio and adjust it depending on if you're in the party or not. And that's a pain in the arse. And I mean, Christ, I've complained about the quick access menu loads of times. But that kind of thing is just a nice little addition to the headset. And that's kind of like what you were saying, Phil. It's just a nice reason to buy official because you get these added bonuses that is built custom for that platform.
Yeah, for me, from an outside looking in, like if I'm buying a headset for the PlayStation, what is the reason to buy the official? A lot of the time, it's just for brand loyalty, isn't it? You're not really getting anything extra for buying a PlayStation official headset. But this time, this seems to be a draw towards it, which is massive. And for the price point that Spencer sort of mentioned, that's crazy.
So what would you say, Spence? Would you say to our listeners that this is something that they should jump in on and get at the nearest opportunity? Or do you think it's something they should hang fire on and use other alternatives?
I would say it really depends on what you already own. If you already own a headset that's capable of the 7.1 surround sound and 3D audio, obviously stick with that. But if your headset's on its way out, like mine was, I'd had my headset for maybe 6 or 7 years, and I was looking for a new headset anyway, I've been in the market for a while, then yeah, definitely jump ship. Get this or the Arctis 7Ps, because this is a really good headset. The 3D audio, although my Krakens had 7.1 surround, the 3D audio is different. Like, it's not only you can tell the direction of stuff, you can feel the depth, you can tell how far away things are. It's weird, but it's really, really cool.
It would be very interesting to see what happens with competitive games on PS5.
Yeah.
In the sense that what headset the pros would choose, because they're looking for that competitive edge. And maybe this headset is that competitive edge in the sense that, as you said, you can hear more and depth than you could with the 7.1s.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really cool.
I think that's about all we got for In PS We Trust episode 9. Thank you all for listening. I've been Davey.
I've been Phil tonight.
And I've been Spencer as always.
Take care, guys.
Peace.
In PS We Trust is hosted by Davey, Phil, and Spencer. You can write into the show via our email, pswetrust@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @InPSWeTrust. To find each of us online, follow our Twitters, @SSJDavey, @PhilipHoy, @SpenPie_. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See ya.